Yo bro, imagine, you are a top badass with such a terrifying look that even the Yakuza sweat in fear. Our guy Monite Zero just wants a little peace, but everyone somehow thinks he's a beast. He has such zero tolerance when people spread lies and rumors. Back Zero jumps back and tears into the trash mobs with replies because he's fed up with the rumors. He tells them to stop looking so scared he hasn't even done anything. It seems he is a real monster. With one kick he smashed an entire gang. Suddenly some savage appears, runs out onto the street, and rushes straight under the wheels of a huge truck. Zero doesn't even think, he just pushes the boy aside. He realizes too late, now he's going to be hit. The truck is right above him and he already knows, this is the end. The life everyone feared flashes in his eyes during the last moments. He wakes up in the library, not a scratch on his body. A guy in glasses appears and asks, is there a client? Zero asks, hey, where is this place? The man replies, this is the section of memory documents. Our guy got lost just a minute ago, he was saving a child. The young man in glasses reads his file and confirms, he was hit by a truck. He tells Zero directly, so you are actually dead. And N0 understands, this is really the literal world after death. He unexpectedly remains calm about this whole situation. The librarian is shocked, he accepted death with such a speedy speedrun energy. Zero already considered his life meaningless, everyone hated him. The guide shows him a crystal ball to prove that people really cared. The little sister cries and screams so much that her eyes are wet. No nuo. Zero cannot believe what is unfolding right before him. Now when he knows the truth, he asks what will happen next. The man gives him a second chance at reincarnation. He cannot return home, but he can move to a completely new world. The librarian says he will use his special power to give him a head start. He throws the dice and determines Zero's fate in the next life. It is decided that he will end up in a world where spirits and magic exist. This world operates on a unique system. Your connection with nature determines your power. His new skill is a passive man loved by spirits, which gives him maximum charisma with magical entities. The librarian waves goodbye and at the same time reveals his true identity. He just dropped the phrase, I am a god, at the very moment Zero disappeared. Zero does not utter a single scream as he runs out of the library, throwing the fool named Four Eyes into the dark void. He wakes up under a wide open sky in a lush forest. At first, something starts crawling on him and he screams for the bug to be removed from him. He glances at the huge mountains and realizes he is no longer in Japan. He remembers the conversation about reincarnation and how he was dragged into the abyss. Something attacks him from behind and he immediately prepares to fight. He grabs this tiny creature and sees it trembling with fear. It is a tiny humanoid with a stone on its head. And he asks, who are you? Can you talk to the little unit? It Zero closes his eyes with his sleeve so the little one won't be scared by his direct gaze. He realizes that during this he is completely blind. Suddenly, a whole crowd of these tiny spirits appears in the bushes. Instantly, they begin to multiply and surround him from all sides. The entire forest floor is covered with these tiny spirits. They begin to glow and behave too friendly towards him. Zero thinks they are just incredibly cute and accepts his new life with them. Our guy Mini Zero got trapped in Isekai after the four-eyed god caught him following the classic truck incident. He has been floating in a cave for 5 days with a whole bunch of spirits he calls chibis. A quiet life, but his tiny friends are way too energetic in the morning. He goes outside to enjoy the weather and literally feels like he is in paradise. He decides to take the chibis fishing so the good times keep rolling. Everything looks calm, but our guy suddenly realizes he actually lives in a hint zone. Chibis can't speak, but they start drawing houses in the dust to convey a message. Dode realizes they need to head to the town. Although he likes his cave, he still agrees to check it out. They have been walking for a long time, and the novelty of this new world begins to fade. Finally, he stumbles upon the stone cobblestones and realizes how much he has actually missed modern asphalt. Suddenly, a scream cuts through the air just now. For the first time in 5 days, he notices a human girl. He tries to greet her with a friendly smile, but his Yankee face is pure nightmare fuel. The poor girl is so frightened that she gives him all her money just to save her life. Before he can explain that he is a good guy, a gang of goblins arrives at the scene to ruin the mood. Zero doesn't even break a sweat. He launches a devastating kick. He tells the monsters to stop pretending to be asleep and prepares to send them to hell. The girl watches in horror as he prepares to wipe the trash mobs out of existence. When he has defeated the enemies, Zero realizes the girl is fainting from the unbearable tension alone. While she is gone, he tries to start a fire, but he has zero survival skills. When the girl finally wakes up, spirits appear before her eyes and she begins to lose her mind. She thinks she has been kidnapped and begs Zero not to sell her. She starts winding herself up. She fears that her first time will not be with a prince but with a scary thug. Zero finally loses patience and yells at her, just shut up already. He says that he saved her life and just wants to light a fire. He asks if she has a lighter and she looks at him as if he is a burly fool. She indifferently casts magic to light the logs and leaves Zero completely stunned. Magic, what is that? He asks, confirming that he knows nothing about the lore. Grace cannot believe that someone does not know the basics of this world. She starts quietly mumbling something to herself, convinced that our guy has completely lost his memory. Zero explains, in his old world, no one could use magic even a drop. Grace worries about him and decides to explain. Magic is simply the materialization of mana into elements. She says that everyone is capable of it, so Zero tries to shout "Fire, go away," to put out the campfire. Nothing happens, and in the end, he looks like a clown in front of his new companion. Grace is confused. Usually such an amount of magic should have worked. Zero flashes for a moment. For a second attempt it looks so scary that Grace almost faints again. Eventually he gives up, stays calm, although the magic clearly hit him hard. He asks why she even came here, and she answers, she wanted a contract with a spirit. She is convinced. He lost his memory as soon as he starts talking again with his invisible chibai friends. She explains that spirits are tiny elemental creatures that people usually cannot see. Zero realizes she has a secret perk about sea spirits as soon as he notices a huge swarm of these creatures around her. Grace explains, making a contract makes a mage incredibly stronger in geometric progression. If you roll 3 or more, you are considered a national power level powerhouse. Zero calls her a child because she is here with a Zero plan on how to find anyone at all. She says she just picked up a rumor, and Zero considers it a trash tactic. He decides to pretend to be a bro and offers to help her. He believes that 2 people are better than 1 for a long journey. Grace finally exhaled, being alone in the forest, and already sweat was pouring down like rain. They finally exchange names, and he introduces himself simply Zero. So she is called Grace Aura, but apparently she is a bit shy about it. She is truly happy to have met someone who is not a complete monster even despite his face. He receives a warm smile and a handshake from her to seal the agreement. But the moment of peace breaks as soon as Zero immediately brutally distorts her name. He starts calling her Gusu Aik and refuses to write it correctly. Despite quarrels and nagging, the new group sets course for Karato Town and departs. Zero reaches the checkpoint, but the guards immediately lose composure because of his terrifying face. Gucci has to intervene and explain that her companion is actually not a demon from the abyss. As soon as they pass through the gates, our guy finds himself surrounded by a real army of cute spirits. They finally enter Karato Town, a very ordinary town for a start. Zero sees that everyone has crazy hair colors and asks if this is some strange local trend. Because you explain that hair color is connected with magical properties. For example, her red hair means she is a fire specialist. Zero tries to break fire magic without force, just shouts, but probably will get stuck with earth magic because of his red hair. Gusu tells him to stop joking, his face is already scarier than enough. Suddenly some complete trash crowd starts shaming and bullying an old man right in the middle of the street. Before Gusu can even blink, Zero disappears from her side to get down to business. He accidentally touches that fat fool to draw aggression onto himself. This guy tries to look cool, but Zero just flies in and delivers a merciless blow right to the stomach. Seeing how this absolute monster is crushed with one hit, the guy's brother falls into real panic. Like Zero throws them such a look that a curse falls on their soul, they apologize and rush away at record speed. He chases him for being too cruel, but Zero thinks he showed mercy. He even promises to deliver a proper final blow next time, and that's definitely not what she meant. The old man turned out to be Uruji, the legendary blacksmith of this town. To express gratitude, he orders Zero, let him choose any equipment from his shop and get it for free. Zero tries to look calm and refuses, but Gusu reminds him, right now he has 0 defense stats. Finally, he gets to the equipment, puts on light chest armor, which looks like a normal upgrade at the mid-game stage. When Uruji asks which legendary saber he wants, Zero only replies, Iron Pipe. Gusek starts to get worked up because that's literally not a weapon in the context of this world. Zero insists that adding nails to the pipe turns the build into top tier. Uruji actually loves chaotic energy and agrees to make this unique request. While the old man strikes the anvil, Gusu goes out to gather supplies and food. Zero asks her to bring some bandages, though he doesn't say why yet. Left alone, Zero just enjoys himself. He gets along with the local spirits, who seem to worship him. He begins to strangely touch with his fingers as a sign of friendship with every chiba ghost in the room. Watching how the guy who looks like the final boss treats the little ones so calmly, honestly, very kindly. Finally, the crafting process is completed. Zero takes out a new weapon and realizes that it is extraordinarily light for its size. Guts cast one glance and immediately understood. The old man really made a pipe from mithril. This is a high-level material reserved for the equipment of holy knights, not for a dumb stick. Zero ignores the lore and simply applies bandages to make a perfect grip. He thanks the old man for the god-tier loot and prepares to move on. The couple stops at an inn for the night, but everything becomes awkward when the owner asks if they need only one room. Guzu immediately gets angry and demands 2 separate rooms before everything goes wrong. Guzu has a furious outburst. She is convinced that the way Zero overslept completely ruined their schedule. She is convinced if he had woken her up earlier, they would already be in Spirit's forest, not wasting time. Our guy is already losing patience, especially when she admits that she might only approximately know the real route. And the girl literally relies on pure RNG intuition to find the legendary location. She explains that the spirits make the environment resemble a highly detailed masterpiece with clean water and fertile soil. Zero realized that the chibai he had been hanging out with all the time exactly matched the description. Since she was completely confused, he decided to stop lagging behind and lead the way himself. Gusu immediately became wary. He was worried that he was leading her somewhere into a dark and suspicious forest. But as soon as Zero began to threateningly hint that he might leave her behind, she finally decided to follow him. They reach Gyro's base, a true monster forest, hidden from the whole world. He enters the place as if he had just finished a long grind session and finally returned to his save point. Gusu is stunned. Magical power flows from every tree here. She cannot believe that this hidden zone actually exists. There was no evidence in any historical book. Our guy finally reveals the lore. He is actually an Isekai protagonist from another world. Ducey thinks that this just explains his strange clothes and complete lack of knowledge about magic. Zero frowns a little. Maybe his chibai friends only like him because of his hacking skill. But Gusu gives him a rare W, saying that friendship and having a skill are completely different things. Things get serious when she warns him to keep his ability to see spirits a secret. If high-level players found out, they would try to kidnap him to force him to sign contracts with spirits and boost their own stats. This idea will make Zero switch to full beast mode, promising to split in half anyone who dares to touch his chibai bro. Even if Goose, who cannot see them, cannot confirm this, she can understand that they are good by how they vibrate near Zero. Gusu trembles with fear. She still cannot put the contract together. After a week of defeats, she is ready to delete the account purely out of hopeless pain and calls herself a loser. Zero spots a new spirit and tries to help her finalize the deal. He even vouches for her, telling the spirit that Gusu is actually a good person beneath all that salt. Zero offers to do this to seal the friendship, and Gusu is immediately overwhelmed with panic. It turns out it is just a light touch of a finger as proof of friendship. Gusu finally puts the puzzle together. She was not given the contract because Zero accidentally claimed all the spirits in this area first. She exhales with relief. This is not a garbage mob, but she blames all the trouble on Zero. Suddenly, a spirit really approaches her and starts a deal. Gusu's vision finally clears, and she sees the little spirit for the first time. The spirit descended into the form of a contract, and Gusu actually rises from pure delight. Our guy smiles smugly and slyly, glad to finally see her make her first big leap. Even while sleeping, she still mumbles that Zero is to blame for everything, supposedly. A few days after Gusu Aik signed a contract with the fire spirit, the carriage still shakes on the uneven road. The journey to the capital continues. But as soon as Gusu begins to look like she is about to vomit, the journey catches a lag pause. Our guy couldn't stand it. He scolded her for not mentioning seasickness earlier. Lately, she has been acting suspiciously, hiding under a heavy cloak even when the carriage is already boiling with heat. Suddenly, something triggers in him at the level of a danger instinct, and he pulls her into the thicket. He makes her keep her head low while they scout the perimeter. Nearby, a pack of goblins is rummaging. They are already ready to catch aggro. Gusu tries to level up and activates wind magic to stop the threat. But MC does not wait for the cast panel and immediately rushes into the thick of it. The goblins notice him but are too slow to react to his speed. And he lives by one rule: in a fight, the first to strike is the one who wins. He throws these trash mobs back and forth as if they are worthless. One goblin is knocked down by a heavy kick right in the chest. He stands over the remains of the monsters, looking like a true raid boss. After clearing the field, he wipes the blood and enjoys the adrenaline after the battle. He notices strange black ornaments falling from the corpses and wonders if it is rare loot. The burden of tension becomes unbearable for Gusu, and she completely faints. They decide to set up camp for the night. The girl is already out of mana. MC gives her the medicine that Chibai brewed to help her recover faster. He orders her to stay in place while he goes to gather firewood. He somewhat fusses with his cool, full serious talk and makes her feel like a burden. She looks completely broken and apologizes for being useless. The atmosphere becomes eerily awkward, and our guy suddenly realizes he has ruined the social connection. She sits silently and doesn't understand why she got involved in this quest at all. Next to his strength, she looks like a complete NPC. The same length, the master of ceremonies tears with his teeth, recalling how he wanted to be a better person in this new life. He lets out a desperate scream aloud because he can't calmly express his feelings. Finally, he tells her to just vent and say everything on her mind. She looks at him with her big anime-style eyes and asks if he really listens to her story. She admits that she has a sister, essentially a pro player in everything. All she wants is for her family to accept her as a true mage. The main heroine notices her own story is an exact mirror of his past life. He remembers how he himself was a delinquent, the kind everyone was afraid to understand. He tells her that seeking external approval from shitty people is a trap. He promises if anyone spreads dirty rumors, he will personally slap them so hard they won't forget it. She finally barely smiles and thanks him for the ride. Even the spirits root for her, and only then does she finally fall asleep. The next morning, MC wakes up, and a plate with something that looks like real poison is already waiting for him. It turns out she tried to cook breakfast, but it was a complete disaster. He jokes that her kitchen has more intent to kill than the monsters they fought. He waves it off and laughs as soon as he realizes she is just a cozy innocent fool. They finally get on the right path and head to the capital Alpha. Massive walls emerge ahead and this place looks like a solid fortress, an immovable giant. By the gates a huge queue, and it's a real nightmare for their pace. Gusu tells him, stop worrying about the inspection and just follow her example. She pulls him to the very front, completely skipping the queue. The guards immediately notice and move towards them. The host thinks that any moment now he will get banned for breaking the rules. And instead of arresting them, the guards bow and greet her at home. She is called Grace-sama, and it becomes clear her true identity is a level higher than she showed. Our guy's brain completely stalls. He freezes, stunned, looks at her, and doesn't understand who he has been traveling with all this time. Grace realizes that just loafing around the castle gates is not allowed, so she leads our guy inside to settle him properly. The guards drop their bows the moment they see her face, and Zero completely loses the thread. He tries to think ahead to resolve the situation and guesses she is actually the daughter of some corrupt merchant. He even orders her to go and die in the fire because he thinks she is just a spoiled brat. They approach this huge castle fortress of top-tier level, and Zero still can't piece everything together. He literally asks if she is blackmailing the entire staff just to get a chance to enter. Suddenly, a massive aura of pure step-on-my-chest energy covers the place when Grace's older sister arrives. This buddy is clearly that talented relative everyone talks about, and Grace is already all in a cold sweat. The sister immediately goes on the offensive, scolding Grace for trying to slip away from the meeting with their father. Then she notices Zero and decides he is too mediocre to be in her castle, ordering the guards to throw him out. Our guy is officially furious. This lady calls him a freak with freakish eyes. Zero is not going to be held back by some royal whims, so he tells her, if she wants a fight, so does he. The sister freezes at his vulgar language, but Grace finally finds her backbone and intervenes. Then she declares that Zero is her friend and guest, and effectively pulls aggro away from him. When they leave, Zero can't hold back and throws in one last drop of poison. He tells his sister that she would look scarier if her legs didn't tremble like a leaf. The sister is simply boiling with such contempt, but the group still keeps moving. Eventually, they find themselves in a room that looks like it belongs to a total whale account. Grace finally reveals the main truth. She is actually the second princess of the Orphan Kingdom. She worries that our guy will start acting strange or get angry because she hid this secret. Zero just looks at her with an empty gaze and asks, so what? He gives her a light headshot to cut off her panic. But to him, she is just a friend, and he wasn't going to kneel down like some dumb, pumped-up idiot. Grace breathed a sigh of relief. Her friend is still a real savage, even if he calls her an idiot. Just then, Lily's personal maid appears with a tea set. At first, she looks like a typical waifu, immediately introducing herself without any delay. Greg, Grace, and a shaved head sets off to change before the official audience with the king. The second Grace faded, the air became poisonous, and Zero hears a loud click of the tongue. Lily instantly drops the mask, calls him a stinging bug, and orders him not to look at her. Zero understands this maid is a true two-faced scoundrel, good only when the boss is watching her. He tells him straight out, go die, and all because Grace is not nearby to hear this toxicity. Zero goes crazy because of how brazenly this little bastard behaves. And just as everything is about to explode, Grace returns in a formal dress, looking as if the legendary tearful column has come down from memories. Lily immediately switches to perfect maid mode, pretending that she herself is to blame because of her own clumsiness. Grace takes the bait and asks Zero to forgive the girl for the misunderstanding. While Grace smiles, Lily throws at Zero the most self-satisfied, fiercest, and most provocative face in history. Zero is about to switch to full speed run mode in his life, but Grace begs him to calm down. Finally, they reach the huge doors of the throne room to see the main boss. Grace forces him to promise to keep a cool head and not say anything unnecessary to her father. Zero throws her a trust me look when the doors finally open. Grace finally returns to the palace and stands before her father, the king. Our guy Zero just stands in place with his spirit squad and looks completely indifferent to the royal vibe. The king's daughter, Amaris, immediately acts like a real bandit, demanding that Zero kneel before her father. Grace looks like her psyche is about to break, and the spirits literally tremble with fear. Zero understands he needs to adapt, so he finally drops to one knee to keep the peace. Amaris keeps complaining that some worthless commoner got into the palace, but the king cuts her off, calling Zero a guest. Zero is boiling inside, thinking that the name Kuswama or bitch perfectly suits this toxic sister. The king breathes down Grace's neck and asks if she understands the consequences of her sudden disappearance. Grace tries to be wiser and sincerely offers deep apologies. But the king is not interested in her feelings. He coldly asks what exactly she gained from her selfish path. Grace tries to find words to explain herself while the pressure of the throne room grows stronger. She finally comes alive and excitedly declares that she managed to make a contract with a spirit. Amaris even tries to catch her and defend her, hoping that this will finally make Grace be accepted by their father. But the king accelerates to the end, calls her a fool and orders her to know her place. He insists that her immaturity is the real reason why she couldn't make a contract before, and completely ignores her colossal victory. The king orders her to get out of sight, and even when Amaris tries to object, he instantly silences her. Grace looks absolutely broken when she agrees to go defend herself alone in her room. She tries to keep indifferent and tells Zero that a room will be prepared for him. But our guy doesn't have a drop of calm when he sees his friends being whipped like trash, pure humiliation. He strokes her head and says that she simply wasn't meant to be silent. Zero activates and turns on the king and Amaris, ordering Kusawami to keep his tongue behind his teeth. He shouts that they need to praise her efforts after the dangerous journey to grow. The king offendedly snaps. How dare some peasant answer? He asks how stupid Zero is. Zero does not back down, asks the king if he really thinks she just rushed to success. He calls the king a complete idiot because he treats his own daughter like a pimple. The king finally loses it and orders the guards to seize this insolent boy. Zero only smiles indulgently and tells him to come at him, ready to draw the attention of the entire fortress. He is ready to crush the guards and, if necessary, even that disgusting sister. He looks at Grace and tells her to say something right now before the chance disappears. Zero reminds her she left home because she hated when everyone looked down on her. Grace finally steps forward, but does not fight, apologizes that the trip happened because of her. She tells her sister to be quiet, stating that it is her business to handle it properly as befits her as a royal person. Grace admits that she was inattentive, but then flashes a smile at her father. There she admits, although Zero's manner of speaking is bad, hearing someone release emotions aloud was refreshing. Zero continues to try to take all the blame on himself, shouting that he did it all alone to protect her. The king understands that they are both acting on their own, and finally orders to bring Zero to the guest room. Late that night, Zero collapsed in his room and had no idea whether the law would soon catch up with him. A maid approaches with food and tells him it's a pity he was not executed. And she begins to hurl insults, calling him a shitty bug for putting Grace in the wrong place. But he explains, because of his stunt, Grace could really lose the succession to the throne. The maid warns him, rumors that Grace is falling down are already spreading because he brought a boy like himself into the house. Zero actually shows self-awareness, admits that he speaks like a miserable freak. He tells the maid that he simply could not come to terms with the fact that Grace was not allowed praise from her own family. The maid calls him an idiot, saying that because of this he has all enemies, and Zero says that he will not change for anyone. As soon as she leaves, she quietly thanks him, and our guy remains completely confused. Zero tries to clear his thoughts, looking out the window while his spirit squad hangs out nearby. He decides that he must find Grace to talk about their next step, but the castle is just a monolith. At midnight, he finally gets lost in the corridors. Suddenly, he stumbles right in front of Amari's room door and hears her wildly breaking down inside. He looks through the door and expects a fight, but finds something much stranger. It turns out the older sister was actually afraid of Zero's terrifying eyes and starts crying as soon as she is alone. Zero is stunned. It turns out she literally sweated from fear all this time. But as soon as he sees her pulling out a doll with her little sister, everything starts to get weird. She begins hugging the doll and fixates on how much she loves Grace. Zero realizes that he just walked into a huge sister complex and understands the situation is very bad. He whispers to his spirits that they need to immediately erase this memory from their heads. But suddenly Grace appears behind him and asks what he is doing near her sister's door. Zero is already in full panic mode, trying to look as if he is just returning to his room. Grace apologizes for disturbing her sister and says she is leaving. Zero realizes if he goes back now, the crazy sister inside will definitely kill him. Zero understands that he has stepped on a huge mine as soon as the princess's older sister cornered him. Gosu Yuyaki tries to disappear from sight before the situation becomes even more complicated. But the sister does not let anyone leave without a conversation. Grace essentially thinks that Zero is trying to score points with her brother or sister, although that is definitely not his intention. Our guy tries to break free at the first opportunity as soon as she disappears from sight. Unfortunately, the sister has zero delay and drags him straight into her private chambers. The air thickens as she pours a cup of tea straight with poison. She fixes her gaze on him and asks if he has seen her awkward moment before. Suddenly, a dagger flies past his head like a warning shot. Finally, Zero loses his composure and starts barking fiercely in response. She is convinced that he is some second-rate player trying to blackmail her. He immediately puts it out, insisting that he is not a coward. The sister says that just being a good sibling is why he acts like a gatekeeper. Zero throws an ultimatum at her, calling her a complete siskin. He tells her quieter and orders her to listen to his veteran advice. If she continues to behave like a thuggish fool, Gus Aki will eventually start to hate her forever. The sister understands. The distance between them is not decreasing, it is growing. Zero starts throwing her a few lines he read in a book to tailor the situation to himself. He proposes a plan to become a bridge so they can finally be honest with each other. She fully embraces the best friend's strategy. Just as he thinks he has broken free, she grabs him again to remind him where he stands. She promises to lay flowers on his grave if he reveals her secret. Zero holds his position and promises to help them get closer. He gives her a genuine, sincere smile and admits that he has already come to terms. He has renounced his sister at home. This makes the villain blush for a moment as he walks away. Late that same night, he finds Grace sitting on the balcony and relaxing. He accidentally scares her to death by sneaking up from behind. The two of them sit silently and watch the stars. Grace thanks him for helping her feel more cheerful. She confesses a deep desire to finally be recognized as royalty by her father. She wants to be a leader whom people can truly trust. Even if she is exiled, she will still hold herself with dignity. Zero does not feel responsible for all the chaos he himself caused. Grace jokingly asks if he will take responsibility if she gets kicked out. Zero takes it seriously. He promises to find her a job and a place to live. The idea that she will no longer have to be with Zero painfully hits her right in the heart. Our guy recalls how in his past life he was always a loner. He is truly happy when someone really wants to stay close to him. Grace sharply pulls him out of his inner monologue with a quick pinch. She suggests they go on a journey together. They will travel the world until Zero finds his own purpose. Seeing her smile like that, Zero realizes how truly incredible she is. He reflects on how his appearance in this world and meeting these chibis completely satisfied him. Making more friends along the way doesn't seem like a bad hook. First, they need to deal with the king sitting on his throne. The king raises the trouble that flared up just yesterday. He demands proof that Grace is truly capable of making contracts with spirits. To put an end to the dispute, he throws them an unexpected quest. Zero has been stuck in this new world for 2 months already. He is now riding in the royal carriage, too luxurious to feel comfortable in it. Our guy knows he sticks out like a painful callus to any potential enemy. Amari's is a complete failure who believes their power will protect them. Life Grace is just as naive, thinks there is no rebel anywhere in the entire country. Zero is already sweating because he knows this journey will turn into a disaster. All this mess started back at the castle, and the king decided to test Grace's power. Since she made a contract with a spirit, they need to check if she can really pull her weight. The mission is simple. Find the lizard folk nest near the village in the east and wipe them off the face of the earth. Amari's stretched after them, but from the way they set up camp, she was a constant headache. While Zero carries all the work on himself, she just stands and grumbles like a true buddy. Even the maid caused trouble, literally pushing Zero while he was already lying down. She forcibly drags him away for a private conversation to drop some real lore. It seems there is a faction that hates the royal family and wants them removed. She warns him the real threat is not from outside, it comes from within the kingdom itself. Zero understands this luxurious carriage is essentially a huge target on their backs. If they want to survive on the way to the village, they need real camouflage. Zero orders the team to leave the situation in the wagon and act everything on him. While the girls are busy preparing dinner, he activates his secret weapons. These chibai have simply insane potential and immediately get to work. By the next morning, the maid is completely stunned by what she sees. At night, the luxurious royal carriage, which was shining, was completely converted into an ordinary cart. This is a complete speedrun of repairs. Such a thing could not physically happen at all. Finally, they approach the village to scout the situation. The village head confirms humanoid lizards nest in a cave an hour from here. Zero wants to gather even more data, but Amaris stops him right here. She tries to claim the position and states that she should be the leader because of her experience. The mage quickly puts this out, reminding everyone that this is Grace's mission. Finally, they reach the cave and see a campfire right at the entrance. The team tries to act quietly while snooping around the numbers. But Amari's has not a drop of patience and stands in full view, right in the middle of the space. She says that the winner is the one who strikes first, and that is the dumbest logic in the world. Zero literally loses control and tells her, use your brain at least once. Her perfect plan is to deal with 5 monsters, while the rest of the squad handles the other 4. Zero is truly worried about the RNG that put such a fat and stupid idiot on the team. He understands these girls don't even see chibis, so communicating becomes a real nightmare. He decides they need to retreat to the village to finally start thinking with their heads. Amaris tries to look cool and asks why she should even listen to him. Zero turns around and gives her a look that could erase the final boss. His aura is so terrifying that the whole group instantly breaks and agrees to retreat. The team needs to compare their builds before everything goes awry. Gazaku starts first showing that she has a contract with a spirit that enhances her fire magic. Then we have Lily the maid. She uses ice magic and has her own spirit helper. She is definitely a top support, demonstrating ice manipulations with zero delay. And she has a vicious streak, accidentally shot our guy, hitting him with a frozen shard. She plays the fool. Supposedly, her hand just slipped. Then the Princess Knight Amaku starts boasting about her legendary gear. She is clad in pure mithril armor and thinks that only she has a meta level set. Our guy is unimpressed and shows that his ordinary-looking metal pipe is actually top-tier mithril too. She tries to break his focus, hitting the pipe to check if it will crack. But the quality is so cracked that her own gear looks like starter loot. She immediately starts lying profusely, accusing him of being a thief. Grace has to intervene and vouch for him before the team atmosphere completely breaks down. While they argue, our guy is actually playing 4D chess with invisible chibis. He sent them on reconnaissance after all, only he can see these tiny absolute monsters. He knows the first move is the only way to speedrun this quest. He drops the info. 15 lizardmen are waiting ready in the linear tunnel. The maid hears something suspicious and demands, "Where did he get this information?" Grace panics and insists that it is his skill to keep his secrets safe. She says that God actually gave him a cheat code for gathering information. The maid thinks she is just a fool, but for now accepts the explanation. Our guy gets a little touched and admits he doesn't want anyone from the party to get rolled up. He gives the girls playful nicknames, and because of this, the Bechacha Knight and the maid completely lose their composure. Grace feels left out of the nickname club and starts throwing a tantrum. He pats her on the head to calm her down, but this is essentially a critical blow right to the heart. He thanks her for the help and leaves her completely confused. But that warm moment instantly breaks as soon as he calls them Blockhead Sisters. Finally, they reach the enemy's location and see lizard men guarding the cave. The girls really fell asleep while waiting, a complete fail for beginners. Our guy wakes them up without any ceremonies. The raid is about to start. The Chubaises confirm the trash mobs are finally starting to catch at least some Z's. The plan is this: flood the entrance and use the water to enhance their magical damage. Amaku is supposed to drop a thunder nuclear bomb on the puddle to paralyze everyone. But our guy is elated. He thinks this strategy is simply perfect. The princess actually uses her head and suggests an ice wall to trap the enemies in the kill zone. Our guy is really stunned. She came up with something decent. The maid finishes preparations and the aura around the group suddenly becomes tense. They stare into the dark abyss of the cave and wait for the first sign of movement. When the trap is already set, our guy is ready to carry out this fight. Time to check if this is true teamwork or just a disaster about to happen. Grace tightens her weapon, ready to prove she is not just a mascot. Our guy starts banging on the frying pan with all his might to draw attention away from the darkness. The plan works instantly. A scaly villain emerges from the bushes. The entire pack of lizard folk immediately charges to attack their position without any restraint. Gasaku completely loses self-control and lets out a scream full of fear. She panics, unleashes a huge wave of black lightning that confuses even our guy. Magic is pure chaos, and the main hero has to intervene to prevent the entire party from being wiped out. Somehow he redirects the raw magic so that the girls can't understand how he even manages it. While the humanoid lizards are still advancing, Grace decides, finally her turn to carry. She shouts that monsters are the best crispy, and at the same time charges a huge spell. Our guy tries to tell her to slow down, but she is already in full glass cannon mode. A powerful flash blinds the whole group, while the lightning destroys everything in its path. When the smoke clears, it becomes clear. Grace actually speedrun through the entire fight. Every single lizardman in this area was turned to coal. Grace looks like the devil himself is laughing at her, and our guy is boiling. She almost cleared the entire cave. He counts the bodies and realizes that RNG is not hitting. Suddenly, a survivor jumps out of the shadows and makes a sudden sneak attack. Before MC can react, Gyusaku pushes him out of the danger zone. The blow throws her back into the darkness of the cave. Our guy lets out a roar, realizing the kid just took the hit that was meant for him. He doesn't even wait for a plan, immediately charges, crashing into the cave like an absolute tank. Inside, Jesuku remembers how much she wanted her father to praise her. MC has completely lost his mind, calls himself a fool, and his rage is already hitting the ceiling. He stares closely at the lizardman and mocks its pathetic accuracy. Now he is in a full berserker state, insists that he can no longer even feel pain. He shortens the distance and begins to assemble the lizardman without any delay. He stands over the shattered remains and looks like a complete nightmare. Grace catches up and prepares to finish it off with another high-level spell. She shouts death and throws another nuclear bomb in the confined space. MC barely manages to take cover from friendly fire. Lily watches from behind the entrance, begging that the whole mountain doesn't collapse. Grace celebrates her one-hit kill while MC literally spits out dust and coughs it up. He yells at her for being a stupid and gluttonous fool, almost causing the cave to collapse. Cracks spread immediately under the ceiling, confirming his words. Among the falling rocks, he notices a strange glowing egg on the ground. He grabs the loot while Grace shouts at him to just run away. They barely manage to escape the tunnel as the entrance collapses. Grace tries to play it off as if nothing terrible happened, but MC is just glad they weren't buried. He glances at Gyusuka to check her condition, but she looks as if she just saw a ghost. She stares intently at their hands and a terrifying aura emanates from her. It turns out MC and Grace are still holding hands after the escape. Gyusuka enters full yandere mode, demanding to know why they are so cute and cozy. Grace immediately panics and starts explaining what is happening. Gyusuka begins a wild hysterical fit. She hasn't even had anyone hold her hand yet. While the girls argue, the little spirits just watch and sigh with relief. The chaos is finally over. Grace got nasty burns from that fireball, but overall she is almost intact. Since she uses fire magic, she has a natural immunity against being boiled alive. She sees that Zero is bleeding and asks if he pushed himself, and he is just worried about her. Our guy strokes her head to calm her down, a pure pro-gamer move. The mood changes instantly as soon as Zero takes out the mysterious black egg that he stole from Lizard Man. Amakyo loses self-control and with one punch knocks it right into his face. She trembles with sweat and asks if he feels any strange discomfort or illness. She draws a sword and demands to know if he has any connections with the Spirit Liberation Troop. Zero is simply confused. These chibis look too calm to need any kind of liberation at all. Amagu is ready to erase him. Everything depends on what he says next. Zero holds his ground and makes it clear that he is not an enemy and has nothing to do with some strange cult. He insists if he wanted to harm them, he would have finished everything long ago and run away. Grace bursts in abruptly to protect him and reminds her sister, he is a complete newbie here. Zero feels the pressure mounting and notices that his hands are trembling with sweat. Amaku orders him to shut up and stop talking nonsense. Our guy realizes he is not really afraid of their anger, he is afraid that their group will hate him. He recalls his past life and how he always tried to keep a stoic face to hide his feelings. No laughter through the tension, while the girls realize that the stone in his hands is the danger level from the top ones. He explains that he has just begun to learn how this world works. Then he drops a nuclear bomb and says that he is from another world. Amaku immediately delivers another physical blow to her own face. She believes that he lies at the trash level and promises to properly interrogate him in the dungeon. Grace finally reaches the limit and stands right between their weapons. Both see red and order her to get out of the splash zone. Grace shouts that if they do not stop this quarrel right now, she will start to hate them both. That threatening blow hits harder than the boss's ultimate, forcing them both to sheathe their steel blades. Grace says that she truly believes in Zero, because during their meeting he knew nothing about magic. She also notes, although his eyes are frightening, he never once tried to manipulate the rewards. She even humiliatingly roasted him, as if Zero-san is not such a master after all. Even Chibai are already starting to tease Zero right at this very spot. Amiko finally agrees to a temporary truce for the sake of her sister. They laid out a campfire to discuss the true facts of this world. It seems the Spirit Liberation Squad believes that spirits are higher-order beings that humans cannot control. Zero looks at the black stone and tries to understand how it is arranged in the goal. Amaku explains, this stone is a cursed artifact that sucks magical power from whoever holds it. Grace asks what exactly the debuff does to a person's body. In the worst case, the victim falls into a coma and never wakes up again. Amaris tells the girls, touch it just a little, let the effect be seen for yourselves. Barely touch it and they feel as if their internal batteries start to drain. And then Zero simply lifts it all and feels absolutely nothing. They understand, this item can only give RNG effects to those who were born in this world. Grace begins to piece together a crazy assumption about our guy. She asks Zero if he really cannot use magic at all. Amaku goes crazy because this should be mechanically impossible. Zero tells her to shut up so Grace can get to the point. Grace delivers the last explosive surprise of this session. It's not that he was weakened or that he simply doesn't know how to cast spells. Our guy literally has zero magical power in his entire body. Amaris can't believe her ears when Zero admits he has zero magical stats. In his world, no one casts spells, so he is playing a completely different game. She starts fiddling with something because she can't understand how a person survives without mana. He simply overwhelms her with logic. He has water flasks and a fire striker, so he didn't sweat from fear. He laughs at disability, but Amaris loses her composure and knocks him down with a blow for taking everything so contemptuously. Our guy grumbles about friendly fire while they stride past huge cliffs. No pressure from Amaris on the political goal, only questions about those rebels she mentioned earlier. She finally leaks a confidential tea confession and it becomes clear. She is actually the vice captain of the Royal Knights. Zero realizes that she is not just some worthless fool, and Lily asks how badly the rebellion is unfolding. Amari says that the Spirit Liberation Squad is gaining momentum because people are tired of the royal family. Zero notices a pattern. Monsters rarely deliberately go hunting for humans. Usually these trash mobs only get aggressive if you step into their territory. And lately they have been launching rapid attacks on real human villages. Zero pulls out a black stone and wonders if this cursed garment is the cause of the malfunction. Amari's froze in confusion because there is no mention in any records that monsters wore these stones that drain mana. It is a complete mystery why monsters are not affected by the stone's effect, and their power is not reduced. Grace intervenes, recalling how the rock tried to suck everything out of her as soon as it touched her. Zero asks the spirits for lore, but they look scared and refuse to speak. Without any more clues, the squad decides to complete the quest and head back to the village. They reach the village and find that the fog has covered everything around, completely and without a gap. Grace thinks this festival is just for her, but Zero reminds her that she is a thick-headed fool and orders everyone to stay low. From the bushes, they notice a squad of cloaked villains searching for the princesses. Amaris confirms that these guys are from the Spirit Liberation Troop Squad. They realize the rebels are hunting specifically for Amaris and Grace. It turns out their luxurious carriage was like a beacon for the enemy. Lily and Amaris are already ready to go to their deaths, but Zero orders them to wait. He yells at them for rushing forward without checking the enemy's position. Zero tells them, striking first is his job, so you need to stay unnoticed. He uses the fog as a tactical advantage and asks Lily if the crew is ready for a quick retreat. Lily is exhausted but still agrees to drive the escape vehicle. Zero throws a terrifying look at the girls, ordering them to sit dead silent. The princesses tremble like aspen leaves hiding. When they approach the entrance to the village, the guards block the way. Lily tells Zero to hide the girls under the cloth while she leads the conversation. The guards immediately stop the carriage. They demand to know why someone is setting out on the road so early. Lily looks back and asks her master what to do. Zero is confused by the name change, but Lily fully immerses herself in the role play. The guards see Zero's terrible face and decide that he is a real ogre. Lily apologizes and says that her master is a nearsighted absolute monster. She spins a tale about a trip to the hot springs and about how she returns back to their estate. She relentlessly flaps Zero's character to sell a lie, and Zero is boiling inside. The guards decide they don't want to breathe the smoke and let the carriage pass. Lily barely smiles. The plan worked perfectly, even if Zero is dying inside. The girls start quietly giggling at the master's joke while the carriage rolls away. Zero's blood pressure is breaking records. Amaris and Grace can't stop mocking him while celebrating a clean escape. Our guy just wants to return to the capital before he goes crazy. The Adjitka drives off into the distance, successfully bypassing the rebels' blockade. Amaris gives the whole group a dressing down, still trying to understand why the rebel squad is hunting them. Zero and Grace are completely confused when the topic of a possible conspiracy with a sabotage plan comes up. Amaris drops a heavy lore. Without spirits, the country can't even hold itself together. If the sisters are captured, the rebels will use them as leverage to demand freedom of spirit. Grace unambiguously stirred by one thought to become a hostage. She tells Lily to step on him because they need to immediately report this mess to her father. Zero understands. This is already much more complicated than a simple escort mission. When they approach the castle, a giant comes out to meet them, a real mountain of muscles. This burly homeless guy, and it is clear that he is insanely happy to meet Amaris again. Amaris introduces him as the captain of the knightly order. Gomlis had already heard rumors about a foul-mouthed scoundrel who dared to argue with the king. He laughs madly, almost rolling 05, and kindly pats on the back. Zero does not take this and calls that rotten old man straight to his face. Grace is sweating. You don't talk to the captain of the knights like that. Gomlis is truly impressed by Zero's fearlessness and offers him a place in line. Zero repels him at a high-speed level of refusal, says he has not the slightest interest in joining such a stiff company. Troop, just as Zero left, Amaris sharply gets down to business and tells the captain that they encountered a rebel squad in the village. This confirms that their reconnaissance was leaked, a huge red flag for the kingdom's security. They are heading straight to the throne room to the king. Amaris is annoyed that Zero just sat down for the royal audience like that. The king stops her and tells Grace that it is time for her official report. Grace takes a deep breath and prepares to lay out everything that happened. She confirms that the lizardman nest in the east was completely wiped off the face of the earth. But there is one detail. She mentions a mysterious black stone found next to the monster's body. Amara enters and explains exactly how the rebels hunted the princesses. The king looks as if he is about to have a nervous breakdown from this troubling news. He orders Grace to submit a full written report as soon as possible. Then he tells Amorous to assist her sister while the room is being prepared for their guest. Zero is actually boiling over because the king behaves like a cold NPC, not like a dad. Just as they were about to leave, the king finally thaws and says to Grace, "You did well." Grace looks as if she just pulled a 5-star unit, shining with excitement. No jokes, the old man finally showed some human emotion, and it's nice to see. When everything ends in the castle, Zero watches as the sisters set off to attend to their royal duties. Suddenly a thought pierces him. Both Grace and Amaris are sweating, worrying about the future of their people. They have real responsibilities as a royal family, and they cannot simply be ignored. Zero stands in the corridor, frozen, completely lost in thought. He begins to doubt his own path in this world. What should I do? He wonders, feeling the weight of the situation on himself. Then Lily watches him walk away, sensing that our guy is going through a serious internal crisis. Zero is stuck in his own head, hesitating whether to keep endlessly drifting from place to place. He understands you can't run forever, but swallowing it, oh, how hard it is. Dusukun slides him down from dreams to the ground, pulls him back to reality, and calls him a fool for getting bored and walking away during her conversation. Honestly, these two whine and quarrel like an old married couple, pure pleasure. Gosuku spills some lore. She needs to investigate that mysterious Black Rock and Spirit Liberation Troop. This means their great adventure will face a colossal delay. Our guy tries to be Chad and tells her not to worry. But the princess has a different plan. She thinks Zero will just be locked up in the castle with her. Zero was completely confused and didn't understand why he could even have the status of a permanent resident in the palace. Yusuke starts trembling with fear in thoughts that he might disappear now and leave without her. He broke out in a sweat. She switches to full aggro mode, demanding that he stay, saying they made a promise. Even Amaris jumps into the conversation and declares that it's too dangerous to let such a wild card like him run free. Yusuko announces that Zero belongs to her, and only she has the right to take care of him. She throws a glance at her sister. Even a raid boss would tremble from it. She warns Amaris, Zero is the type of guy you need to keep on a short leash. Zero literally feels the temperature drop from all these tense vibrations. Late that night, Zero relaxes with Chibai while Gyusuku finishes her paperwork. The castle looks calm, but the atmosphere is clearly not as it should be. Zero realizes he has stayed too long and must retreat, let the princess shine on her own. But suddenly Lily, the maid, comes in with candies and completely ignores his privacy. He knows the snacks are just a cover for a serious conversation. Then Lily gets straight to the point without unnecessary talk and asks what his real ultimate plan is. Zero admits having a guy like him around is a complete disaster for Gyusuku's PR. Lily looks relieved, glad that he really has at least a few working brains. She doesn't think he's a villain, but she knows the capital is better left to him. This is not only for the princess, it is for his own survival. Well, she claims he is a completely unique individual because he can see spirits. Zero tries to stay casual, but he knows she is right. So it turns out he is not as inconspicuous as he thinks. He constantly talks to the void. He asks why his abilities are a sufficient reason to leave this place. Lilia drops a real bomb. The Spirit Liberation Troop squad is most likely already inside the castle walls. If those black cloak freaks with mantles find out about Zero, they will hunt him until they find him. They have strong connections, and they will stop at nothing to get information about spirits. Zero realizes his presence actually puts Gyusuku in even greater danger. He is truly shocked that she trusts him with all this intel. He gives her a quick peck on the forehead and says she is an idiot because she worries so much. If I don't believe you, then who should I believe in this world? He says this as if he is the real main hero. Lily admits that she also wants him to stay, but the risk is too great. Zero gives her one last gentle pat on the head, despite her threatening to delete him for it. Under the cover of night, he starts packing his gear to break away in speedrun mode. They meet at a secret place outside the giant walls. Lily checks if he forgot anything before heading into the unknown. He leaves her with the classic, "See you, cleaner, you bad one." She barely smiles in response and calls him a stinky bug as he walks away. Today, as the sun begins to rise, Zero realizes he seems to have packed a bit too lightly. He turns around to ask the spirits for advice and gets the shock of his life. The Chibai army has grown to incredible proportions. A huge crowd of spirits is already trailing behind him. This will definitely attract aggro. Zero sees the spirit suffering and understands. He cannot ignore the Spirit Liberation Squad. He understands, with this squad behind his back, he never truly stands in line on his own. He decides to stop overthinking and simply trust his instincts. It's time to head to the city of Kalat and see what this world is really worth. Zero thoughtfully looks around at how long he has already been in this world while resting with Chibis. Grandpa Gramps arrogantly boasts and brags about his handmade preparation. But Zero is not easily impressed. He called the dinner completely half-baked. Gramps goes crazy from the insult, and Chibis just enjoy the chaos. Grams cuts through all the chatter and asks what Zero really wants. He notices that Zero is alone and asks where the red-haired girl went. Zero explains that he left her near the capital, but the old man just laughs and asks if he had a wife who would fight. A fight breaks out and our guy instantly flares up, shouting at the top of his lungs. "She is not my wife," Grandpa finally admits. When he first approached the window, he thought Zero was a ghost. No, because Zero has few friends here, so he needs the old man's hints. Gramps is ready to help, so Zero asks if he knows anything about the black, egg-shaped stone. Gramps has no clue about the rock, so Zero calls up the Spirit Liberation Troop. It turns out Grandpa knows them well because they are his regular clients. They rent his equipment. Zero is impressed. The old man dared to sell to such a dangerous group. Gramps just shrugs and says they are simply people who want to liberate spirits, aren't they? Because of this, everything in Zero's head turns upside down. His words contradict everything he has heard. Gramps throws in his wise, saying a weapon is only as bad as the one who holds it. He reminds Zero that he also gave him a weapon, so he has no right to judge. Gramps doesn't care about their ideals. He is sure people can survive perfectly well without spirits. Zero understands. He feels the same. After all, he is from a world where magic is zero. Zero's brain starts glitching as he tries to understand who the real bandits are. Gramps calls him a weirdo for truly thinking so deeply about the world's problems. He tells Zero to drop his bias and decide for himself after he sees the truth. Zero takes the advice to heart and realizes, if he just sits still, he will understand nothing. Zero thanks Urugrams, and because of this they start shouting at him, because the old man is called Uruji. When Zero asks about the great spirits, Gramps admits he really only cares about blacksmithing. Our guy called him a worthless unit and is preparing to return to the forest. He waved goodbye to the old man and now he is much better prepared for his task. Zero decides to visit his forest base to gather information and later hit other villages. From now on he decided to manage his own choices. As soon as he reaches his cave he shouts, "Home sweet home," and the Chibis joyfully respond with applause. The fresh air makes him feel as if he is filled with power. Suddenly the Chibis notice something is wrong in their territory. Zero asks them to lid, preparing to see some shaggy crowd of trash. Instead, he runs into a giant with a beard as big as a mountain. The stranger claims that he is the only thing that is different here. Zero didn't even hesitate. He decided that this guy is approaching the Chibis and aiming at them as prey. He starts beating the old man relentlessly. A barrage of blows falls one after another. The Chibis panic and beg him, "Please stop it, Ghana." Zero simply punishes the deviant rabble to be silent until he himself stops swinging blows. The bearded man shouts that he is actually the great spirit of the earth, because he finally stops and looks at the complete mess he made on the face of this boy. Even a great spirit sweats. Zero is so dangerous. Zero completely loses his temper because of this bald old man with a beard, who insists that he is the great spirit of the earth. This shiny, foolish old chatterbox begs for mercy, although no one even demands proof that he is not just a lustful stalker. The evidence of the old man is simply the assertion that he looks exactly like the cute Chibis flying somewhere nearby. Zero does not believe this RNG tier logic for a moment. He continues covering the old man with a series of blows, until even the Chibis themselves are forced to beg him to calm down. After everything settled down, Zero gives the old man one last chance to explain himself so as not to get involved in the fight without new allies. He demands real evidence that this wonder is a high-ranking spirit. The old man tries to pressure with rank, but Zero points out the obvious hole in his logic. Supposedly, people cannot enter this forest, yet Zero is standing right here. Everything becomes many times more terrifying when the old man suddenly calls the name Zero. Zero immediately counts him among the high-level stalkers, but Chibai seems to trust him, the only thing stopping Zero from deleting him. The old man explains, Zero's ability to see spirits is not due to some broken skill from that godman in glasses. It seems this skill only works when in your basic characteristics you already have a true nature, one that spirits can love. This means that our guy, even before he was zeitgeist into another world, was already a natural magnet for these small creatures. To make everything even stranger, the old man starts reading Zero's thoughts, and that's frankly disgusting. Zero rejects all this cringe to ask what this great spirit really wants from him. Zero looks at Black Rocks and Spirit Liberation Troop and suddenly realizes he has gone too far and can't handle it. He decides that he must start asking the right questions from the very beginning. He goes for the simplest, what are spirits? The old man reveals, spirits are the source of all mana in this world. Without them, the magical system is almost completely nullified, it is simply killed. If the spirits disappear, the mana supply drops to zero and no one else can use magic. Then the bomb explodes, the rainbow mana of this world in complete chaos gone. No one demands him to know why the mana is broken, and the old man says, go yourself past this mystery in speedrun mode. He tells Zero that he must find the other three great spirits, fire, wind, and water, to uncover the truth behind Black Rock. Then the old man raises a finger, hinting that there is one last secret left. This secret is the truth about who you really are, Ghana. Our guy stands stunned, suddenly realizing that he has no idea what his deal is at all. The old man explains, Zero is not like all people and must find his own answer. Yet before the old man disappears, he reaches out and touches Zero's legendary iron pipe. Zero stares in confusion. A strange aura light flares around his weapon. It seems the old man just dropped a legendary upgrade on his gear. He explains that the other great spirits are scattered across the northwest and south. When Zero gathers his strength, he must give her on the altar to save Chibis. No screams for him to return, but the old man only smiles and disappears. He leaves behind Zero and with a farewell word goes away, already awaiting their next meeting. Zero stops at the man in glasses and at the secret he might be hiding. Now our guy is left with a huge task to save his little comrades. After a long session of theocraft, he finally realizes the quest journal is still almost empty. Our guy decides that the only way forward is to go and find the great spirits. He calculates that the fastest way to pass this stage is to keep course south. Suddenly, a wild princess appears and screams for help. This is Gusuku, and she is chased by a whole pack of absolute giants. Zero is not even impressed. He is twisted by the fact that she is chased by such low-level mob trash. She claims to have burned 10 of them, but her mana pool is completely empty. Zero tells her to stop pretending to be cute, because this is not a slice-of-life anime. He decides to carry the team and simply beats the soul out of him. Gus Oku calls him a complete musclehead when he charges forward. Zero ignores the goal. He just takes the heavy weapon and starts swinging it. He orders the goblins to keep their eyes on him while he takes them down. He is annoyed that Gyusuku is useless and does not apply support buffs. The remaining goblins suddenly realize that a raid boss is in front of them, and sweat immediately covers them. They are really shaking while Zero just stares at them. He hits them with a terrible face and says it's a joke, but the fear is real. Finally, he gives the order to Gyusuku finish the job. She casts a huge AoE fire spell on the rest of the group. Zero looks at the crunchy remains and realizes the clash has finally ended. The zone is clean, but the real headache is just beginning. Yususu all smiles, confidently thinks that their teamwork is top level. Zero quickly grounds her in reality and demands an explanation of why she is here. He tells her to get lost because he is trying to go through this path alone, as fast as possible. She insists that she has already calculated everything, and Zero is not such a simple guy. Zero asks if she even has permission to move away from the spawn point. She grits her teeth as if the king gave her the green light to follow him. She crashes right into his face and shouts that her only plan is to follow Zero-san. Even after being pushed away, she stubbornly stays close to him, like a permanent team member. Zero finally gives in and tells her that they are heading south to the Great Spirit of Fire. He describes the spirit as a deformed, hairy old man. She asked for the exact coordinates of the spirit's base. Zero just realized he actually hadn't read the task marker and now he has no idea where to go at all. He tries to guess that it's somewhere in the forest, but she points out the southern region is full of volcanoes and minerals. He is completely overwhelmed by zero confidence and without any real plan. He feels the pressure and starts rummaging for any hidden clues. He pulls out a map and asks the Chibai spirits for help. Then the Chibis actually respond to the map and start pointing at what they noticed. They point to a specific place and Zero loses all composure. This is Fuse Volcano, a high-level zone, too dangerous for them. But Zero doesn't worry about the difficulty jump and tells her to trust the Chubbies as they head to the volcano. How much longer will you be a drag? Zero screams through the sand, that's it, no more quarrels. He tells Gyusuku that instead of tears, she needs to put that energy into preparing for the ignition volcano. Gasako is sweating profusely. Walking that distance on foot is a complete nightmare for her. Zero-san points to the cold reality. No sane cart driver would approach the no-entry zone anyway. Our guy decides that he will just go there on foot himself, while Gusakasu returns to the castle to get the carriage. Gasaku realizes that she is about to be left behind and a terrible lag shoots through her mind, a sharp shift in time. She abruptly steps back and insists that the carriage is undergoing maintenance, just so she doesn't have to leave him. She forces out a laugh to cover her tracks, but Sans suddenly notices something is definitely wrong in the air. There is a strange rustling over the forest and both tense up because something huge is approaching. They both freeze. The tension in the air rises to dangerous levels. Suddenly, an absolute mountain bursts out of the thicket, a monster flower. Zero-san is stunned by how gigantic this cursed plant is. Yusuko recognizes it as a dead flower, a monster that usually feeds only on animal corpses. This thing has clearly latched onto them and starts an unrelenting chase. Gyusuku advises to burn it, but Zero-san hesitates, does not dare to light a fire in the forest. He decides, let them just run away because they have not been directly attacked yet. During the escape, Gyusaku is overwhelmed along with them by a lovesick delusion about eloping. A vine suddenly twitched sharply and without any warning caught Zero-sensei's leg. Zero. He is jerked upwards, hanging like bait while the monster looms over him. He curses the plant as he tries to break free, but his dull blade does almost nothing against these vines. He realizes it cannot be brushed off and he cannot reach the main part to counterattack. The plant opens its mouth wide and a nightmare jumps out from its teeth, dripping thick slime. Sensei Zero understands that he is about to be eaten, and shouts to Gyusuku to blow this thing away with magic. Hesh releases a giant explosion, but the plant has a high IQ and uses Zero Sand as a shield to withstand the blow. But Gyusuku screams in horror, convinced that she has just expelled her own partner. She realizes there is no choice only to follow the man into the afterlife. But before that, she directs her pure rage to burn the enemy to ashes. A huge fiery storm flares up, and the voice of Sano Zero miraculously breaks through all this chaos. Gyusuku continues to play the tragic heroine, promising to soon join him in the great beyond. And Zero-san pulls her out of that state, complaining that his whole body is in serious pain. He thanks her for not pressing, believing that she held back all her strength to save him. Gyusuku, with an empty face, admits that she does not remember giving it easily at all. She tries to nullify everything with words that she was simply focused on killing the monster. He feels the tension after the fight finally subside, and she gives him a sly smile. Zero-san really sometimes shows rare gratitude, says, "Thank you for saving me." Gyusuku was on cloud 9 after being recognized, and Zero-san gave all the credit for surviving friendly fire to his armor. He looked at his chart and battered gear, realizing how close he had come to game over. He understands, from now on they need to be much more careful sticking together as a team. Zero-san decides, his dumb weapon turned out to be a complete failure for such clashes. He decides that he needs a Nada knife to effortlessly slice these plant mobs. They decide to visit the nearest town, rest, and prepare their gear before the real challenge near the volcano begins. Zero, in the heat of the moment, is tearing through, and the fire spirits have staged a complete triumph. Grace explains, everything around was roasted and powered up by the volcano fuse's strength, so the south turned into a tropical biome. Due to the temperature, this territory is practically flooded with stones and fire just chibis. Our guy doesn't waste a second and immediately secures a new contract with one of the little ones. He starts wondering if there really is a limit to his department if he just keeps collecting them endlessly. Grace says that since Zero is a fire magic user, this heat shouldn't even affect his HP bar. Even when sweat is pouring down him like hail, Zero insists it's just male pride and refuses to admit he's struggling. Grace shares some of her water and notes that her mana efficiency is terrible because she uses an attribute that is not her main specialization. They have been sharpening and sharpening this path for 10 days straight. Now Grace survives only thanks to special healing spirits given to her by Zero. Zero gently pats his chibai on the head as they finally sneak up to the destination. They arrive in the mining town of Fura, a place where people come to steal their way to wealth or get cheated. Grace thinks the locals are scary but then jokes, they are nothing compared to what Aura Zero radiates. All our guy wants is to find a decent high-class hotel, and at least real food after this long journey. But today they are definitely unlucky. RNG immediately intercepts them. It turns out Amari's found them, and Grace looks as if a world boss just appeared before her. Zero notices. Amari's is boiling with anger. Grace pulled a sneaky trick and escaped the castle without permission. He tries to lighten the mood with jokes, but Amari's is not in the mood to talk at all. She draws a blade as if ready to erase Zero from the save right now without the slightest hesitation. She calls him a fool for deciding he could get away with it. Suddenly, a loud explosion shakes the area and Grace is forced to drag Zero away from the epicenter. They rush into the run and run for survival, while Zero demands to be told exactly what trouble he has been dragged into. Amari's yells at them, convinced that it was Zero who provoked the magical attack. She was completely confused because someone dared to use magic within the city limits. No shout in response, "It wasn't me," because he can't even summon magic at all. Just when everything already looks doomed, a carriage comes around the corner. It's Lily at the wheel. She tells Grace and Zero to get inside before they are noticed. Lily can't understand why Zero is there at all, but tells them to move him. Amari's shortens the distance. He barely manages to grab onto the back of the carriage as it speeds away. Amari's is left in the dust. She shouts, "I'll kill you," as they escape. The Chibis just watch as the chaos unfolds while the carriage rushes away. Grace tells Zero to move aside so she can take the rear line. During the chase, a huge magical wall rises. It blocks the way and makes the whole scene look like a risky, daring robbery. They have only 30 minutes to break free and escape. They break out through the southern gate and Zero realizes, now they officially look like a bunch of terrorists. Finally, they arrive at the cave to hide from the search squad. Lily immediately launches the flaming Zero, calls it a stinky bug, and scolds Grace for leaving her behind. And the atmosphere becomes incredibly heavy as they prepare for the grand lore drop. Lily drops the last, loudest bomb. She says to Zero, "You are suspected of attempting to overthrow the royal family." Zero is completely stunned by the accusation. Our guy's reputation is utterly destroyed in one night. He is branded as a criminal of the highest order. Zero completely loses control after learning he is accused of treason. Yusaku is laughing somewhere in the background, while our guy has a complete breakdown due to the misunderstanding. He finally realizes she was the first to drag him into this mess. A hard day when your own summons troll you and act as if you are a criminal. Lily drops a bomb. Princess Amaris is hunting him one-on-one right now. Zero thinks he can just talk his way out and twist everything as if nothing happened. The girls look at him as if he has really lost his mind. And Lily explains, these accusations are just a smokescreen to get their hands on him. Time is running out. Grace finally decides to spill the truth about why she ran away from the castle. She explains that this is the exact reason she had to flee. It turns out that in the capital some top players know Zero sees Chibai. They didn't come here to talk, they want to catch him to use his power. It seems Amaris is too much of a musclehead to be aware of the whole plan. Grace tried to warn her sister, but the villainess just jumped ahead and flew in without listening. Zero is no surprise how he leaked his own secret. Lily cuts him with harsh truth. He constantly talks into the void in front of people. The Spirit Liberation Army has effectively infiltrated the highest echelons of the server. We are talking about how the commander and the minister pull the strings. Zero has no memory left of these NPCs. And when they describe the face of the gorilla and the face of the official from the crowd, everything finally comes together. He is curious about what story these old ones have brewed. Thieves hunt for powerful leveling up. It only comes when you capture several spirits at once. Zero looks at his Chibai army and realizes he is effectively a walking cheat code. He stops the endless scrolling of the feed and concludes, both girls were just trying to save him. Gyusuku begins to cry because she had no idea he would be accused of betrayal. Zero strokes her head, making it clear that she is not to blame. Lily begins to feel that she is a useless secondary support heroine. Grace does not tolerate this and pulls her into an embrace. Grace tells Lily, drop this made image and just be yourself. Now they are a squad and rank does not matter. Lily begs for the next move as the sun sets over the mountains. Zero does not think about letting Amaris capture him. She is a musclehead without brains, and she will protect him. The girls immediately veto that suicidal raid. Zero knows he has no right to let his friends get banned because of him. He does not take his eyes off the giant volcano in the distance. He decides that the next mission is a speedrun straight into Fuse Volcano. This is a forbidden zone. Knights will not dare to draw attention to themselves there. Lily thinks he is a complete fool climbing into such a high zone. But no gloating smiles because at the end of the dungeon, the great fire spirit awaits him. The squad hits a dead end at the foot of Fuse Volcano. It is a completely forbidden zone. Zero realizes their carriage has no off-road stats and they will have to abandon it right here. Almost all the grass is gone, the environment has turned into a literal furnace. While the carriage moves backward, our guy is already trembling from how the passive heat is eating into his body. Lily is basically a human air conditioner. Her ice magic keeps her cool. Zero tries to catch some fresh air, but does it like a true scoundrel. Kasuku dies of shame, and Zero only wants to survive this heat. He decides this trick will be a speedrun straight to the top of the volcano. Lily can't stand this nonsense, and with one quick move, lands him for being a marauder. But suddenly the Chibis pick up a strange signal in the air. They point to a specific spot as if they stumbled upon a hidden quest marker. The girls think Zero has finally lost his mind because he just froze, staring at a real cliff on the rock. He pretends as if spirits are whispering secrets to him. Before they manage to argue, he starts climbing the rock face like a real pro. Finally reaches the top, looks like at 1 HP. The team looks back at the summit, but there is only emptiness and no soul. Lily notices that it is a complete wasteland and no prey is visible anywhere. Suddenly the whole map starts shaking as if a giant boss is about to appear. Under their feet the ground begins to crack and split, revealing a huge pit. Zero does not try to distract the enemies and orders the girls to run away. Although it is already too late, the entire platform collapses into the abyss. They enter free fall and debris rains down around like rain. Zero wakes up with the feeling as if he was just crushed by a top raid boss. For a moment, nostalgia hits him. His current Chibai friends appeared nearby for the first time. He suddenly comes to his senses and checks the spirits. They look completely broken. He tells them not to worry because this failure is just a bad RNG this time. He looks around and sees Gasuku and Lily stand as if they were just erased. They gradually come to their senses, but Lily is horrified when she sees blood on her hands. Gasuku is puzzled. Despite the fall, she felt nothing at all. It is a real miracle that after such a fall they are not all ghosts yet. It turned out that the Chibis pulled a pro-doctor move and used medicine to stay alive. Basuku is suddenly overwhelmed by a wave of depression out of nowhere. She really breaks down because she cannot see the spirits to thank them herself. Lily breaks the moment, calling Zero a softie again because they are stuck in a pit. They realized they are trapped inside a volcano. There is no way out or back up. Zero of gaps a dim light somewhere at the end of the tunnel. They stick to the path and come out to a huge cave hidden deep underground. Yusuko is stunned. It is so hot here that even her fire resistance does not hold up. Zero ignores the heat because he feels a colossal presence lurking in the shadows. He steps forward and demands that the great fire spirit appear. There is dead silence in the room, and Zero looks like a complete clown in front of the girls. He orders them to be quiet while trying to maintain his dignity. Suddenly, the entire cave explodes with a terrible aura. Zero realized he actually grabbed the boss in parentheses for a strike. From the depths of the flames rises a huge obsidian dragon. This is the absolute monster they were all looking for, and it looks ready to wipe out the whole party. The boss fight of the century has just arrived, and it is a giant dragon that answered Zero's call. The girls immediately break out in sweat and try to flee. This absolute monster lets out such a roar that any novice player would delete the game. Zero does not even flinch. He calls out to check if this monster is really the great fire spirit. His team thinks he has lost his mind because he dared to speak to the raid boss. The dragon actually responds. It snaps in an indignant tone, as if it is offended that some pathetic human foot steps on its territory. It decides to skip the dialogue and immediately go to the game over screen. Lily refuses to be a trash mob and steps forward to protect the squad. Grace strengthens her strongest cryomagic, hoping to nullify the fire damage that is about to fall on them. It is incredibly impressive. Everyone is thrown back as if they hit a mine. Zero tries to check his squad, but Gyusuku gets caught in the line of fire. A thunderous explosive wave covers the area. The dragon's power strikes a direct blow. Her face says it all. This is a complete collapse. Zero squeezes speed to the limit. He knows his teammate is about to be eliminated. Even with fire resistance, taking that explosion head-on is certain death. Dust settles on the scene, which looks like a total party kill. Our guy is in despair, reaching out his hand to save her before her health bar drops to zero. The maid screams at the top of her lungs, panics and fears. The worst has already happened. I'm sure this person won't have a single bone left, the narration warns. A miracle happens. Zero finds Gyusuku alive and holds her close in the aftermath. He is completely confused. Why doesn't he have a single scratch? Even the dragon is knocked to the side, demanding to know why his own power protects the person. Suddenly, a huge wave of tiny spirits emerges from the rear to help our guy. These chibis are everywhere, and the protective wall around them is literally just that. Zero finally puts it together. These little ones are the real MVPs. A new opponent appears and orders the dragon to retreat immediately. The great fire spirit himself in armor, clearly made from super strong meat. The dragon cannot believe that a top-level spirit sides with a human. The armored spirit orders the dragon to take a closer look what Zero really is. The dragon looks carefully and finally sees the hidden potential of the main hero. It decides to grant the request and leaves the territory without any unnecessary drama. The massive beast flies away, leaving the group alone, at least for now. The girls finally stop panicking when the great fire spirit officially introduces itself. Zero is shocked. Normal people are not supposed to see such a high-level twilight. He wonders if this means that everyone sees those perverted spirits he deals with. Putting jokes aside, Zero turns and thanks the tiny spirits for their support. But one of the chibi starts glowing with a strange dim light that quickly fades. It tells Zero he needs to know something before everything disappears. The little one vanishes without a trace, leaving behind a mysterious black stone. Zero grabs the object and freezes, not understanding what kind of prey he just hooked. The girls also do not understand where this stone came from at all. The fire spirit explains that this stone is a spirit that has fallen into a deep sleep. Spirits are made of magical power, and usually they only allow users to borrow it. It drained its entire battery just so that Zero would not be doubled by the dragon. Seeing the baby sacrifice himself to save them, the whole squad loses their strike. It covers everyone at once. The mood grows heavier as the fire spirit prepares to drop something else. He asks Zero a question that turns the whole game upside down. What is the goal of the Spirit Liberation Army? He burns out as the tension reaches its limit. The great fire spirit demands to know Zero's true intentions, but our guy is not in the mood to talk. He could no longer stop thinking about the chibi, which exhausted his mana and turned into a cold black stone. He makes it clear, the goals of the Spirit Liberation Army mean absolutely nothing to him. Even when the spirit asks why someone would release a chibi, Zero simply shrugs and brushes it off, as if it doesn't concern him. The spirit begins to dissipate, and Tepper is left alone with his own thoughts. He grabs his weapon, realizing there are no more answers, only questions. Before completely disappearing, the spirit gives him a new task: to head west, meet the great spirit of the wind, and find out who he really is. The time has come, the spirit warns as it erases itself from space. Zero is boiling. That huge spirit just revealed too much and vanished without explaining the lore. Grace tries to look at him, but he is in such a mood right now. He looks at the extinguished spirit in his hand and doesn't understand why someone could sacrifice themselves for someone like him. He is overwhelmed. The little one spent every drop of his strength just to save him. He feels like a worthless crowd for allowing all this to happen. And other chibis come up and start comforting him, reminding him that he is not alone. Zero understands, wandering aimlessly won't fix RNG. Right there he swears that he will never again allow some chibai to turn into a black stone. He begins to piece together this mystery, the thought spinning, whether these stones are connected to those glitches in the world's magic. The lack of information shakes his peace. He vents his rage, completely breaking a stone nearby. He looks like a real maniac. Blood flows down his face, and the girls break into total panic. Zero decides immediately arrange a speedrun to the sunset. But before they set off, Amaris and her knights appear to block the way. She has that terrifying aura of a commander, and she demands to be told what the great fire spirit told them. Zero does not back down. He tells her directly that they will meet the wind spirit further ahead. Amaris trembles all over, trying to get to the truth about how spirits turn into stones. Zero instantly retorts, saying that he is just as much a novice as she is and is simply doing everything he can. Grace finally steps forward as a bridge between them. She throws in a giant lore bomb. Spirits do not feed on humans, they actually lend humanity their own magic until they die. There is no process. The fact is that the whole system is rigged against Chibis. He places his hand on Grace's head to calm her down. He tells Amaris that he doesn't care about rumors and the kidnapper label. He radiates terrible pressure, promising to smash anyone who tries to stop him. Amaris just laughs, revealing that a new bounty has just been placed on him. Grace suddenly has a brilliant idea. She realizes her sister is actually looking for an excuse to squeeze in and leave together with her. Amara starts blushing and declares that she can help with many things if she joins the party. The knights can't believe it, their burly commander is acting so cute. Grace teases her sister by pointing out that she just led the squad to arrest them. She makes it clear that she travels with Zero because she wants to, not because she is a hostage. Grace officially invites her sister to join their journey. Amari switches to full caring sister mode, promises to protect Grace until the end of the world. Lily still thinks she is a complete gorilla, and no numbers if there is an absolute zero on the team will help against the nightly order. When the sun begins to set, the company finds a way out of this area. Amara sends her knights back to the castle to go on a raid with the squad herself. Zero looks at the horizon and realizes the real trial is just beginning. Their path is set, they head west, meet the spirit of the wind, and save Chibis. The vice captain tells how much everything was destroyed in the castle as soon as the group disappeared. It turns out Amaris was framed for treason, that's why her elite squad mobilized so quickly. Zero is actually impressed by their dedication, understands that these soldiers are normal guys. The mood changes instantly as they reveal this is the official Amaris fan club. They promise to stick with her even when she is a complete idiot. Then a real twist flies out. It turns out they want her to humiliate them. Zero sweats profusely as he realizes he is surrounded by a huge club of perverts. The soldiers prepare to move back to the castle to draw attention and protect the king. They trust the security of Amaris. Zero, he responds with a confident thumbs up. Amaris breaks the silence with a hail of approving shouts. She can protect herself and calls him maggot. The team decides the next main quest object is to the west. Gyusukyusi says that the great spirit of the wind is supposedly right there. The spirits on the map indicate a suspicious structure, a solid dungeon. Grace explains that rumors say a god lives in the western desert. She confirms this is the great god of wind and they are supposed to find him exactly. Zero is going crazy because the hidden building is visible to the naked eye. He cannot comprehend how much nonsense Gyusuko is pouring out about that map. Our guy understands there is no limit to this stupidity, but we must move on. They officially set course to search for that very powerful god of wind. Grace suggests first returning to the Satido, finally have a good rest. Zero even shuddered. He is ready to speedrun to the next part of the journey. The soldier reminds them that there is a huge reward hanging over Zero's head right now. To make everything even worse, the princess had essentially reduced the city to dust earlier. The soldiers suggest visiting the nearest onsen to recover their stats. The idea of a hot spring shocks the girls completely. Zero and his army of spirits cannot believe that such a hidden gem is so close. The group finally finishes the long-awaited rest under the moonlight. Zero fully recharged and charged up with drive to get back to work. While he is ready to move, the rest of the company looks completely stressed out. Amaris is already whining about a warm bed and some decent food. Zero does not believe and reminds the villain that he and Lily are the ones carrying all the hard work in the kitchen. He starts to pick on her, but Grace immediately intervenes to protect her lady from the insect. The maid finally cuts off the quarrels, orders the girls to get into the carriage, and sends Zero outside to attract the patrol's attention. Zero reminds everyone that they are not on a fuel special operation, because they are literally fugitives accused of treason. He goes out to scout the territory, but still boils with anger. The role of a runner boy clearly irritates him. During the walk, he tries to digest the crazy lore explanation that has recently fallen on them. The goal is simple, to meet the great wind spirit and figure out his own identity. Suddenly, Zero feels someone snooping in the shadows and sharply turns around. An old woman almost teleported right behind him and gave him such a heart attack that his heart almost stopped. But she is surprisingly calm, invites him to sit and talk a little. When Zero pronounces his name as if it were an ordinary thing, an inner alarm immediately rings. He tries to make out her face, hesitating whether she is just some random shopkeeper he once bumped into. Grandmother laughs and immediately reads his thoughts, ordering him to think even harder why she is here. She warns him if he is more careful, it might help him notice the top player as soon as he sees him. No smiles, and I understand. Only one type of NPC is capable of this level of hacks. They pause for a moment in a tense silence, and only then does it finally dawn on him. Am I telling the truth, Great Spirit of the Wind? He asks, ultimately challenging her directly. Out she confirms his guess, teasing that he is actually clever enough to figure it out. Zero loses his train of thought and asks why she went for a walk instead of camping near her temple. She says that technically she is still in the temple, and Zero's mind is seriously spinning. He cannot comprehend how she pulls off this trick of double presence. He starts desperately rushing to the mysterious grandmother because she speaks in circles like every great spirit. He demands to be told if something happened at her home base. She hits almost point blank, and that only distorts him even more. And then she drops a bomb. The Spirit Liberation Army has already entered the temple of the Great Wind God. They say she is the easiest to track, so they made her their main target. Zero thinks they want to free the spirits, but the truth is much more suspicious. The enemy's plan is to drop a huge barrier to seal the temple tightly. This would trap the spirits inside and keep everyone else out. Zero believes this is a complete hassle and cannot understand the logic of this move. He feels they just want to keep people completely away from the spirits. If they do that, they will cut themselves off from the spirits too, and that makes no sense at all. Grandmother sharply turns around and asks Zero what exactly he was doing during his journey. He tells her they were just hanging out, eating, and traveling together like a normal party. She hits him with deep philosophy and warns, you can't consider someone a good person just because they were told so. Zero understands. She wants him to stop being a sheep and start thinking for himself. Before he manages to ask anything more, Grandmother begins to dissolve and disappears in a cloud of smoke. She leaves him one last warning about the barrier, and only then orders him to hurry to the temple. Zero remains standing alone, angry about this mysterious escape. Despite the confusion, he knows. It's time to start a speedrun and rush to the temple to see what is really going on there. It turns out the Great Wind Spirit is the same strange old lady from those times. The Spirit Liberation Army is now setting a barrier near Wind God's shrine, so the group has to bypass the village and rush straight into battle. Grace still can't let go of the thought that Zero sees spirits, although no one else can. She thinks it's all because he is a person from another world. But Zero is not sure that this is the only reason. He has a lot of questions about his own power, and he needs to find that old spirit to learn the truth. Finally, they reach the shrine and see the same trash mobs from the previous encounter. The girls are already ready to rush to the entrance, but Zero raises his hand, stopping them. He is afraid that if they use their most powerful magic, they will accidentally destroy the sanctuary itself. Before they can argue about the plan, the cultists notice them and demand to know who is there. Zero raises his voice and blames the girls for behaving so loudly, causing them to lose the element of surprise. He tries to convince them that negotiations should always be the first choice. He steps forward, showing the girls to watch how he handles this, and smiles so kindly. Since Zero looks like a hardened thug, his attempt to be friendly looks like a complete nightmare. The soldiers begin to tremble and spit in fear, calling him the devil, and immediately rush into attack. Zero gets annoyed and crushes them in a moment, muttering that he only wanted to talk. He is truly offended that they called an ordinary person a demon, someone like him. Within seconds, the guards are tied up and beaten into silence. Lara calls him an absolute scoundrel for using such a scary appearance to lure the Discovery. Grace thinks that this is just Zero acting as usual, but they realize even more enemies are already waiting for them in the temple. The remaining cultists begin chanting a spell of the highest level of earth magic. The earth starts to rumble and roll as the spell takes shape. A huge golem rises from the ground, strong as a tank, and looks like a solid mountain of muscles. Grace is shocked. These guys can really pull off such an expensive summon. Zero is unimpressed and thinks this giant pile of stones looks dumb enough to slip past. Grace warns him the golem has zero delay and it moves many times faster than he can imagine. She is right, the monster lunges forward with terrifying speed. Both Grace and Lara jumped into the zone, unleashing a barrage of magic and sword strikes on the beast. They manage to break the golem's body into pieces. Zero thinks the fight is already over, but Grace orders this idiot to keep his eyes wide open. The stones begin to glow and tremble on the ground. As long as there is earth to draw from, this thing has infinite health regeneration. Zero is enraged and calls such regeneration a complete fraud. The golem does not wait for him to quiet down with grumbling and launches a heavy attack. Zero barely manages to dodge the blow, but a cloud of dust fills his lungs. Breathing is almost impossible. The golem manages to catch him by surprise and with a direct hit pushes him into flight. Zero is now all sweaty. He realizes that his usual physical attacks against this stone body are completely nullified. He himself cannot use magic, so he is stuck in a bad situation. He looks past the monster and notices a summoner standing near the sanctuary. He understands, if the mages are destroyed, the golem will likely just crumble. The problem is that the golem is a sturdy guardian. It blocks any path to the backline. Zero realizes that to win, he will have to do something with magic. He releases a dark smile, deciding to try a risky play. He orders the spirit lady to wait. He is about to go full power. Amaku trembles with fear and sweat because this golem is a true titan. He needs mercy to buy time and manage to gather a counterplan. She knows this is a reckless risk but trusts our guy. She prepares her blade, a true villainess, and rushes into battle. She doesn't even flinch, only watches the giant intently. And Grace cuts ahead in a solo, while others watch how she draws aggro onto herself. Amaku turns to Gyusuku and asks if she can crank up the heat of her fire magic to the maximum. Then he fixes his gaze on Lily and demands, let her prepare a huge, brilliant block of ice. Lily is embarrassed but says she can do it if someone stops the monster's movement. He has no time for lore excursions, so they have to trust the process. Grace retreats and grumbles that golem regeneration is some truly blatant pay-to-win junk. Amaku orders her to lure the monster to the mages and cut off its leg. She twists a smile because for a top player this is a walk, nothing more. He understands, those in hoodies are strange, they use the golem as a meat shield to protect themselves. Grace thinks they are just running away, but Amaka has a much nastier plan in mind. They are not retreating, they will just delete this from the server now. They split up to flank the beast from both sides. The mages begin to panic. They realize they are trapped in a ring, and that is according to the squad's own plan. Grace shouts for Amaka to prepare, it's time to finish it. She lands a devastating blow and completely breaks the golem's leg. Now it's the mages' turn to feel the pressure. The heat is so insane that it almost damages Amaka's own jacket. Lily steps forward ready to meet him with cold indifference. She launches an ice shard the size of a glacier onto the hot rock right up close. As soon as the ice touches the heat, everything spins, it becomes hot. Thermal shock causes a giant reaction. It raises a huge explosion that shakes the entire area. A giant cloud of steam and debris covers the battlefield. The girls cough through the smoke and wondered if they really managed to clear the scene. Inside that huge crater, something is still rattling. One of the mages is still clinging to life. It seems as if it is about to break loose and rage flower. He shouts that he will never forgive them for ruining his plan. Amaku simply steps on his head without extra movements to cut off the dialogue scene. When the pilot is knocked out, the golem finally crumbles to dust. The path to the temple is finally free of trash mobs. Lily asks how he knew the explosion would happen and he basically admits he just guessed. The squad heads to the entrance of the dark temple. Amaku warns everyone, stay alert, the boss might still be inside. The little spirits sneak behind and try to stay calm. But suddenly Amako just flies straight into something, almost breaking his nose. It turns out there is a hidden barrier blocking their path. They are stuck outside and look at the invisible wall, through which their speedrun goes awry. Zero runs into a completely invisible wall just as he tries to get behind the group and enter the Wind God Shrine. The girls realize this high-level barrier was specially created to block both people and spirits from passing through. Since they can just force their way through, the team decides to split up and find another entrance. Our guy is already ready to just camp out in the open, but the Chibis start whining and insist they need to get inside immediately. Zero understands he can't just ignore his little companions, so he decides to put the Chibis first and find a way through the entrance doors. He slowly pushes aside the heavy doors of the temple, tensely holding himself back, because any trash from the crowd could be waiting on the other side. Instead of a fight with the boss, he encounters a suspicious figure in a hood standing next to the Great Spirit of the Wind. The developed guy in the hood looks irritated with himself, muttering that a stronger barrier should have been placed at the gates to keep people out. He turns around with a creepy polished toe-shine smile that screams "Final Boss," clutching his chest. He immediately identifies our guy as a Zero and looks as if he is about to explode with pure delight. The man introduces himself as Koya from the Spirit Liberation Army and tries to act as if they are completely on the same side. Zero does not believe this friendly trick for a second and immediately points out he was the one who set the colossal bounty on his head. Koya tries to pass it off as a mistake by the council, but Zero immediately sees this guy is his complete opposite in every way. Koya admitted he came here not just for nothing to make a contract with the Great Spirit of the Wind, but the old spirit pushed him away. Great spirits do not abide by human rules. Despite the fact that the spirit has already bent to him, he has the audacity to ask Zero to join his organization. Zero sharply waves him off with a no and tells him to get lost because he wants to speak only with the old lady. Koya's smile freezes on his face, but Zero sees his eyes are dead cold as if looking down on an insect. He insists that the true goal of the army is to liberate and take control of the spirits in order to save the world. Zero's internal alarm bells ring as soon as he hears the word control. He begins to lose self-control as the tension in the room reaches its peak. Koya explains, the world now is a complete bugged mess because the spirits are slowly disappearing from existence itself. He pulls out a glowing orb and says that it is actually a spirit egg or a magical stone. When a spirit burns out all its mana, it returns to this stone form to recover over several years. Zero understands, this means that spirits have a rebirth timer, but there is a huge trap. For centuries, people have been collecting these stones to use them as batteries for magical tools, effectively killing the spirits by not even letting them return. The black magical mine is especially dangerous. It aggressively drains mana from anyone who touches it. Koya explains, people treat these spirit eggs as valuable loot as soon as they become transparent. They extract power for jewelry and equipment, and Zero realizes that this is simply a slow genocide of the spirit race. Zero initially thinks that the Spirit Liberation Army might actually be the good guys if they are trying to stop this. And then Kuya lays out his twisted logic. They want to monopolize the spirits, so only people who have permission will be able to use them. There are no requirements to clarify what he really means by control. Koya's plan is to create a world where only those who follow the army's rules are allowed to make contracts. He insists that this will stop the hunting of spirits and bring a false peace to the world. The Great Wind Spirit looks intently at Zero and says that he and Kuya are two sides of the same coin. Both are liked by them, both are equally loved by the spirits. Zero is hysterical from this comparison and refuses to be part of the world domination scheme. He understands, Koya only wants to use the spirits as a cheat code to rule over humanity. Our guy finally snaps and shouts that Kuya is just a fat fool who wants to grab the source of all magic to make everyone bow before him. And since magic is needed for daily life, whoever controls the spirits essentially holds the whole world hostage. People had no choice but to follow the army if they wanted the light to stay on for them. No screams that Koya doesn't care about what the Chibis really want. He can't stand Koya and makes it clear imposing one's beliefs on others is never the right move. Who understands that his recruitment speech has failed, so he decides to retreat for now without a fight. Zero orders him to shut up, swearing to create a world where Chibai can live peacefully without being used as tools. The Great Spirit of the Wind warns Zero, if the world sides with QE's methods, everything will tilt toward that dark prospect. She hands him the next quest marker and orders him to move north to meet the Great Water Spirit. She gives him a new legendary item, promising that he will soon understand the true limits of his power. While his journey to meet the rest of the Great Spirits continues, the stakes have never been higher. Zero knows sooner or later he will have to decide which future he will fight for. He clenches his chest, resolutely searching for a way to save everyone without becoming a tyrant. Zero is absolutely boiling with rage over the screening test he just went through. The old woman tells him the next quest marker is far to the north. Suddenly, a huge thud echoed from the entrance, and Zero was forced to dash out at full speed. Grandmother just silently watches him leave, having no idea which path he will choose in this chaotic speedrun of life. Zero finds his company near the entrance, they just seem to be locking in. Amari's looks like she's ready to give him a boss-level combo for leaving on his own. Even that healer girl has a terrible smile, which means your HP is about to drop to 0. They are already completely fed up with his solo Kato antics and want to properly tame him themselves. While he realizes he's about to be twisted, our guy manages to activate his ultimate ability. The girls have no idea what strategy he is preparing there. He stuns them with a legendary 90-degree swallow, begging for mercy. He rejoices as if he has 200 IQ, believing that no one can stay angry for long at a sincere apology speech. He barely chuckles smugly inside thinking he outsmarted this encounter. MRSC pierces right through his cover and exposes him he is a fake. He tries to keep his composure while Chibai trembles in fear in the background. The little spirits literally cry from the pure tension in the air. Finally, the priestess lets him go, but Zero looks as if his soul has already completely left his body. And they find a guy from the Liberation Army. He is just wandering near the ruins. It turned out that Amari's activated the muscle brain and physically broke the magical barrier. This guy couldn't even escape, his entire squad was simply knocked out of the fight. Zero was confused how some supposedly high-ranking mage couldn't just remove his own barrier. It was then that the villain drops a huge lore bomb. He is 101 like Zero and cannot use a single drop of magic. But our master of ceremonies is even rarer. He is loved by spirits. This is the same man Zero encountered when he first met the Great Wind Spirit. Amari's immediately draws her blade, ready to delete this guy from the server. Zero has to intervene and stop the execution before everything becomes too chaotic. This guy is completely scared to death because of the blonde, terrifying aura vibe. No promises that he will bury that man later, but he says, now is not the time. That guy starts whining about being buried and Zero just yells at him, focus. He asked that man if he seriously intends to save the spirits at all. Zero admits that he hates him to the bone and wants to smear him with honey and set wasps on him. Still, you can't say that this guy's goals are complete trash. Zero decides his next step is to head north to meet the great water spirit. He orders that man to go together as their new guide. The girls go crazy over this choice of companion. Zero just finishes him off with a blow so that he finally calms the hell down. He says he's not a saint, but he cares too much about the Chibai to let them suffer. He shouts accusingly that he uses spirits for his own benefit. Zero flashes and a threatening smile appears. He calls that kid a brat and says he needs to learn his place. The party froze in shock at Zero's sudden dominant energy. Now he is officially a bound hostage, and he is not even sure that the essence will keep its word. The girls agree if he tries to start something, they will simply get rid of him. Zero looks only at the overall goal, understanding it is better if they stick together. Leading a new friend, the squad sets course north. The girl simply melts with rage. Her prisoner repeatedly tries to disappear as if melted away. Zero does not even tense up. Chibai are on round-the-clock watch 24/7. It turns out Lily actually mined the entire perimeter with traps, and the sounds of that poor guy who was smeared in the distance are real music to them. They are now sneaking north to a place called Zili Pond to find a high-level water spirit. Our guy finally finds a runner hanging upside down like a complete clown. Zero flies at him with "Yo, brat," but the guy is too busy sobbing over his life choices, has nothing to answer. As soon as he is lowered, this guy somehow instantly changes clothes without any delay. He realizes his old Spirit Liberation Army uniform is actually a huge target on his back. The maid just wants to bury him and be done with it, but Zero believes he can actually become useful for the party's roster. Moreover, Zero knows if this guy tries to disrupt their game again, someone nearby will gladly delete his save file. Amaku literally hung in the background, radiating a deadly aura. Any pro player would instantly start sweating from this. To prove he's not just a trash mob, the guy swings and tosses a whole stack of pancakes that looks like it was cut from an episode of a luxury cottage game. The girls dig into the food and have to admit, the taste here is truly top-notch. No smiles, he sees how his plan to shift household chores onto others works perfectly. He even throws a compliment to the maid, and this causes her to panic so much that everything falls apart. As soon as he is officially tamed, he starts listing his utility stats: carriage, driving, and cooking exquisite dishes. Since Zero has no invested points in these life skills, he decides to keep him close. He starts acting as if he is a legendary prince unit, but the rest of the squad just looks at him with complete disapproval. Essentially, he admits, in household matters he is a real monster, but in real fighting, Zero. Grace again shifts attention to the main quest, asking how their progress toward Zelipond is going. Amagu remembers how she trained there back then, but she has bad news about the area. It turns out the path is blocked by a huge, disgusting swampy bog. Zero is immediately at a loss. Walking through the mud is the worst ecological debuff. The man explains the detour will take months, so they need to go straight through the mud. Grace tries to stay tough, but it's clear she can't keep her footing in the mud. The prince type tries to refuse. He doesn't want to dirty his royal outfit. Amaka doesn't bother and simply instantly drags him into the mud, right on the spot. Even the maid looks at the swamp as if it would be easier to fight a world-level boss than to take a step inside. This hike is pure hard labor. The environment wears down everyone's endurance bars to the last. Grace breathes heavily but doesn't give up. She wants to prove she has leveled up. Suddenly, the maid notices a possible safe zone ahead. Lily found a small patch of dry land. Finally, they can rest. The prince guy tries to be a gentleman and extends his hand to Grace, but she responds with a look of pure disgust. Instead, she turns into Zero and pleadingly reaches out to him, begging to be picked up. Amaku threatens to crush anyone who even glanced at her sister, while Zero just sighs heavily and accepts the task. He picks up Grace, but walking through the swamp dragging another player behind is essentially playing on hard mode. Every step is a struggle, and God's mercy doesn't make it easier just fussing nearby. As they are already approaching the landing platform, Zero feels the ground suddenly shift beneath him. The maid girl shouts a warning. She realizes that what Zero stepped on was not solid support at all. A shadow looms over them and a huge snake head emerges from the swamp. It turned out that the rock Zero he used as a lever was actually the back of a boss-level snake. Just as everything started heating up, from the dark swamp out of nowhere rolls that giant snake with a trash mob. Our guy immediately understands. They are in a terrible situation because dodging in the knees up to the chest in the swamp is practically impossible. Amari's does not help the atmosphere at all. She laughs as if they are just sitting ducks about to be eaten. Lily does not accept this and firmly lectures her, while Zero checks if Gyusuku can move at all. It turned out the poor girl was completely stuck in the mud, so in this fight she is a total burden. Zero wipes his forehead with sweat and desperately looks for something to hold on to in order to finally respond in battle. He does not take his eyes off the monster and tries to come up with a plan with his little spirit helper. Suddenly a flash comes to his mind. What is beneath them is not just earth. He barks at Lily and demands that she use ice magic to freeze the swamp. She thinks he is asking for a world-tier spell and grumbles that she cannot freeze everything indiscriminately, but he clarifies. He only needs a solid base under their feet. The plan is simple. Lily freezes a small patch for support and Zero plays bait to lure aggro out of the snake. And then the boy in the cloak intervenes and says they just need to freeze the snake itself. Lily said he is a complete fool and added that the mana cost would be insane. Even if they managed to pull it off, such a large snake part would just tense up and the ice would crack instantly. Despite all the logic, he just smiles and says to Lily, "Come on, try it anyway." Lily decisively gets down to business and tells Zero to take on the defense of the others while she focuses on her own task. Zero helps Gyusuku to stand up and is ready to move with the unit to a safer zone. They quickly get out of the place, trying to put distance between themselves and the beast. Zero still doubts, can this pair handle a boss-level threat using only one spell? The young man in the cloak simply tells Lily to stay calm and strike the snake with her best magic. Lily shouts freeze and releases her energy and Zero's jaw drops. This is not some minor frostbite, a gigantic dome of absolute zero magic bursts from her hands. The entire area is engulfed in blinding light and crystal ice shards flying with a chime. Zero can hardly believe his own eyes as the swamp turns into an Arctic wasteland. When the fog clears, the giant snake is completely encased in a massive column of ice. Lily is completely bewildered by her own result, and the boy in the cloak just smiles as if it was a normal speedrun. She knows for sure her stats are not that high and understands that it's not just about her strength. Zero observes them from a distance and puts together the puzzle what exactly just happened. But there will be no analysis now because Zero understands. The danger is not over yet. He shouts for them to get away as huge chunks of ice begin to fall from the sky. While others panic, the boy in the cloak just winks slyly and tells them not to just squat there. Amari's abruptly moves to action and throws out to everyone, "Retreat," while she prepares to take the hit herself. She rushed forward and shielded the group from the falling debris. The ice falls down with a dull, deafening roar cracking below and tears off a huge cloud of snow and steam. Gyusuku quickly jumped forward to check everyone, hoping that no one was folded by the falling glacier. The team is safe, and the boy in the cloak even receives a funny hug from Amari's, which makes Zero and Gyusuku look very annoyed. They finally cleared the swamp, sighed with relief as the sun began to set. Lily is still stuck in her thoughts. She cannot understand why her magic there was so different and too vulnerable, as if it had been pushed over the edge. Zero tries to stay calm and tells her that everything is fine, saying that everyone came out of there intact. Zero deeply inside exactly feels that something is clearly wrong with that cape guy. He stealthily glances at the man who is smiling, sensing a hidden power that he cannot quite decipher. But the tension from this mystery is already clearly pressing on him, and he tells the group that he is simply tired and needs to go to sleep. Dusuku waves at him with a bright smile and thanks him for the ride. Zero knows he is already approaching the meeting with the last great spirit. He lies down under the moonlight, but his thoughts rush wildly dark and heavy. He tells himself, as soon as everything becomes clear, he can finally surrender. This is a heavy cliffhanger, brothers. Our guy finally realizes the truth he has been trying to escape all this time. The pack finally lands near Zali Pond after having removed that huge snake. This place is the final point of their current quest. Meanwhile, the girls do not waste a second and jump into the water to refresh themselves. Our guy from Zero stays at maximum alertness. Lily and the others are too heated up. They have returned to their element and are glowing with euphoria. They play this as a beach episode snack, but the atmosphere is clearly suspicious. Of course, the local simp tries to offer his help to wash their backs, but he is immediately cut off. Zero must physically drag him away before he cancels himself. Our guy is not in the mood for jokes and quickly lands a slap to keep his partner focused. Even against the backdrop of a peaceful landscape, Zero cannot shake the feeling that something is wrong here. Kuya notices that Zero is trembling with tension and decides to get to the bottom of what is really bothering him. He asks if Zero feels out of place despite the great honor of their journey. He even hints that Zero might consider this whole situation some kind of mistake. Zero finds it funny. Kuya himself takes on convincing him otherwise. It is an unpleasant realization, but he cannot find a worthy answer. Sudden screams from the pond interrupted their deep conversation and forced them to hurry back. They find the girls trapped in a strange situation. Water itself behaves as if it were a garbage crowd. Instead of helping immediately, Kuya suggests first taking a closer look, this proving he is a true man of culture. Zero does not care about anything and hits him again, demanding to find a way to fix this problem. A mysterious voice calls them rude for judging the behavior of a pawn. Suddenly, water bursts out with a fiery splash of a huge wave, and this is a sign that the main level of power will be revealed right now. The girls are still in shock, and here the real boss finally arrives. She introduces herself as the Great Spirit of Water and warmly welcomes them to her domain. As soon as Zero hears her confess that she missed the feeling of young skin, he immediately labels her a perverted spirit. She is indifferent to that insolence and admits that they have already met other great spirits. Kuya does not hesitate and declares that he will rule over humans and spirits to restore order in the magic of the world, which has been disturbed. The spirit recognizes Kui's answer and addresses him as the Great Bright Spirit. Their girls are simply shocked by this surprise. But Zero is stuck in his own thoughts. He connects everything he has noticed for several days. He is the only one who can interact with the Blackstone barriers, which weaken other spirits. Plus, his ability to see Chibis has always been a huge red flag. He tried to brush off the truth, but reality stubbornly looks him straight in the eyes. The water spirit turns its gaze to him and calls him the Great Dark Spirit Zero. This is the last piece of the mosaic that confirms humanity is already in the past for him. The revelation that Zero is actually a great spirit knocks all composure out of the girls. They completely lose their calm. Our guy is in complete denial. He thinks he can't be someone like that legend. He thought if he is a spirit, then he will just be another one of those cute Chibis, not an absolute unit with a human body. The she-wolf girl doesn't even want to listen, and even demands the lady to explain what the hell is going on here. Zero finally snaps and shouts, "Quiet, who do you think is the most confused here?" Even in crisis, Zero can't help but notice, the lady spirit is a real beast. The other part of the harem is not thrilled with how he stared. Several girls throw him very serious death glares. No attempts to calm them, he ordered them to go and change clothes so they could focus. A seductive lady just giggles. She is wildly pleased by the compliment about her appearance. She even drops a bomb, like if you want she doesn't mind being your fourth, you know. Now Zero again takes course, asking whether the same prophecy about the Great Spirit was really true. The lady shifts to a serious tone and tells about the legend behind the Great Light and Dark Spirits. First of all, the Great Light Spirit, the one who will fix the world, she reveals. These are chosen from the dead flesh of this world, so its body is technically a ghost. Meanwhile, the Great Dark Spirit is the one who changes the world and comes from another dimension. She looks him straight in the eyes and confirms, and this is you, Zero. Probably this is needed so they can adapt and make choices based on human experience. If they chose a local, he will be constrained by the common sense of this world. They would just try to fix the situation based on what they already know. But Zero is a cunning trump card, because he is not held in the cage of the usual mind of this world. He can make decisions relying only on his own knowledge. That bright spirit brings order to the world without destroying it. And the dark spirit changes it, regardless of local rules. Being human is just a speedrun strategy to better understand the world than Chibis ever could. She said and continues the explanation while they listen attentively. Zero realizes he has truly outgrown his humanity. The girls look at him, their bodies in cold sweat, because they feel the weight of his new fate. The lady asks, "So what will your decision be?" Zero understands his main goal so far is to save Chibai. He needs to protect those who have turned into black stones, and at the same time not break the lives of everyone around. Part of him believes that the best move is to erase magic and free the spirits. If he had not met his friends, he would probably have destroyed the magic of the world completely. In his previous life, he knew people survive quite well even without magic. But then he looks around and realizes it is magic that makes this world beautiful. The existence of Chibai adds colors to this world that he does not want to erase. He clenches his fist, trapped in a giant RG whirlpool of feelings. He admits that he still has not grasped the perfect answer. But since time is running out, she hands him a staff containing the power of all the great spirits. Their ultimate goal is Orphan Castle in the center of the continent. This is the only place where they can turn their desire into reality. The journey officially enters its final point, and the hype is at full. Zero finally collects the last great spirit for his collection. Koya has completely lost his mind. Our guy really managed to complete the set. But even though it looked like continuous hard labor, Zero confirms he met all four main ones. But the celebration abruptly ends as a high-ranking spirit warns them, "Do not relax." Gray begins to ask real questions about the secret dungeon hidden beneath the royal castle. Below there is an altar specially for conversations with the great god in the sky. Suddenly night falls as if he just experienced a complete destructive wipe. He falls to his knees to deliver the worst news to Amaris. It turns out the Spirit Liberation Army just did a speed run of the castle and captured everything. Zero does not ask for details, but Kuya looks as if drops of sweat are pouring down like hail. Amaris boils with rage, suspecting that Kuya knew from the very beginning that this raid was coming. Zero steps to the threshold, a demand for Kuya to stop gatekeeping and explain what is happening. He doesn't care, even if the castle is deleted, as long as he copes with the magical power. He is already tracking glitches in the money of this world and wants to overthrow the system. Zero accuses him of actually planning a bloody coup to replace the government. Kuya admits he is ready to get folded by the army if the mission is accomplished. But he understands the timing is crap because they are not yet ready for the next phase. The secret component of his plan is a thing called Black Magic Stone. The strategy was to use these stones as bait for monsters and draw their attention to the castle. The girls are shocked. This plan is cold-blooded to the core. Kuya points out that the recent surge of trash mobs near the capital is not just bad RNG. It's all because of the stones secretly hidden under the king's feet. These stones work like a beacon and every monster nearby turns into a raging beast. Zero realizes stacking those stones in the capital is basically a death sentence. It forces the king to raise the guard and post it at the gates, leaving himself unprotected, a perfect target for a sneak attack from the rear. The knight confirms the minister and the knight captain have already made their move. No Miraklesho, the minister will even handle the stone, since he usually sucks a person dry to the bottom. It turns out the minister is a top-level researcher. He found a bypass. Grace accidentally reveals that all this time she was holding one of the stones in without any debuffs. Koya explains that she holds a rare completed version on that does not drain mana from the user. The maid asks what happens to the monsters when the castle disappears. Kuya's original plan was to send the stones to God to aggro the monster. But Zero has not yet finished ramping up his power, so the castle will be completely demolished. The girls realize how devilishly rigged this all is and launch verbal attacks on Kuya. The chatter ends. There is a need to strike the castle before the game ends. Zero summarizes, all the global delay is just sitting in the capital. He clenches his fist ready to go into battle with the final boss. He understands excessive pondering is for losers and it's time to get to work. Despite the enemies having home field advantage, our guy does not doubt for a moment. He will bite through this clash and win. With a smile like a shard, the wildest Yankee in the world is preparing to smash the rebellion, rallying only on pure strength and without fear. Zero, Koya, and the team stand on the edge of a true geographical reconstruction. Our guy is not just clearing the way, he's cutting through the swamp, a huge canyon, as if it were a standard mod for terraforming. Maris and Grace are completely exhausted and stunned by the unmasked power of the raw output great spirits. It turns out that having a big light and dark spirit in the team is essentially a cheat code. Amaris wastes no time and orders everyone to run as fast as they can back to the southern village. While they rush, Zero realizes his earth magic is essentially a loophole in the physics of this world. He is fascinated by his own stats, while Kuya meanwhile mocks the exhausted knights for being too slow. Zero began piecing together why the Spirit Liberation Army moved their timeline forward. Koya has no answers, but he definitely feels the pressure. With such heavyweights as Lily and Grace, who have left the capital, the city's defense looks like a complete disgrace. Zero throws a bomb now. The enemy probably thinks that Koya is a traitor. The goal is clear. The rebels want to overthrow the kings and take the sanctuary under the castle. Kuya tries to prove something, but he is forcibly dragged along. There is no time for argument. Amaris is in full drill sergeant mode, yelling at them to move their legs. In the midst of everything, Zero notices that Lily looks a bit gloomy. She asks if he is really a great spirit, and our guy just shrugs it off as if it's nothing special. He is actually calm about having become a Chibai ghost because he has already died once in his past life. Lily gives him a sincere, warm smile, understanding that his heart is in the right place. Finally, they approach the nearest town as the sun begins to set. Even if the cart with the cannonball hits the capital, they will still need a whole day of travel. Suddenly, a crowd of knights appears from Amari's fan club and they jump forward to meet them. They are almost sobbing. They failed to protect the king. It turns out the king is now barricaded in his room, and Minister Gamas is playing a full arc of betrayal. Mars immediately takes command, demanding an emergency strategy meeting. Chaos is happening in the capital. Goblin hordes are rampaging everywhere. Sneaking in with elite units is like a suicide mission with the current number of enemies. Zero got tired of stalling and ordered everyone to just shut up and listen. Amaris is visible. He is preparing something. He has a plan. He asks the soldiers if any of them know basic earth magic. His plan is a pure speedrun strategy, to dig a huge tunnel straight to the underground sanctuary. Suddenly there is dead silence in the room. Everyone is realizing how crazy this sounds. Kuya starts laughing and calls the plan an absolute impossibility. He explains, even if they divide the mana, they will still fall to zero long before they reach the castle. Kuya believes that his 112 spirit contracts are something incredible, yet he is still just a small fish. He tells Zero that his plan won't work because he hasn't been in this world long enough to make contracts. Grace looks worried, as if thinking whether the plan is doomed even before it starts. At that moment, our guy decides to brag about his gacha luck and reveals that he has 354 contracts. Literally an ocean of Chibai spirits appears, proving that his power level is off the charts. The counter even jumped to 357 in real time, and the soldiers seemed shocked as if by an electric shock. Grace silences the skeptics and demands quiet from the peanut gallery. She vouches for him, telling everyone that despite his scary appearance, he is a good person. She explains that no one has more care for spirits than he does. While the Liberation Army chases spirits like trash among trash mobs, Zero treats them like family. Grace got a little emotional and admitted she just wants to help our guy win. Amara steps forward and pushes her sister aside, fully trusting Zero. Even the soldiers begin to flow back. They remember how he once gave them strength. Zero is still angry and offended because everyone mocked his face, but he cannot hold anger for long. And the fact that the girl smiles and believes in him makes all this exhausting work not in vain. He quietly and modestly thanks while preparing for the mission. Amari's gives the final green signal. They start digging. The great magical operation is officially in start mode, and the team prepares to dig their way to victory. The team is now racing at high speed to the capital through a giant tunnel system. The girls are simply stunned. Zero managed to cut such a deep path in one go. Our guy explains that he only enhanced the soldiers' magic, not carrying all the heavy work himself. Even so, the scale of the Great Spirit's power cannot simply be ignored. They finally arrive at the underground cave and are forced to abandon the ride to continue on foot. This place is huge. Even elite villain hunters are amazed by the scale of the chasm beneath the city. The stakes are too high. The enemy has probably entrenched themselves in the most important places, such as near the altar. Zero decides to move with a small group so that everything remains unnoticed, while the soldiers primarily save the king. They head to the center where the altar should be. Of course, no normal dungeon crawl would be complete without running into a bunch of trash mobs along the way. Instead of some grand brainy strategy, the girls decide, only a frontal assault the only way. Zero does not hesitate and leads the attack straight into the enemy's face. Enemy mages unleash a hailstorm, but Lily resolutely takes the front line and pulls aggro under her protective defense. A powerful explosion shakes the tunnel, and the cloaked eccentrics decide that they have finally finished them off. They are already celebrating, reminding each other that the spirits must be alive for their twisted plans. But the smoke clears, and before their eyes stands an ice wall, not even scratched. Lily only smiles indulgently, calling the whole situation easy peasy, before gathering herself and freezing everyone without exception. The mages try to bombard the barrier with fire magic to melt it, but it literally does not budge. No laughter, no excuses. He explains that the ice is soaked with his own magic, so it essentially cannot be broken. The enemy is drenched in sweat and whispers to him, "Complete demon," while the group simply passes by. Grace is already itching with impatience to wait for her turn to fight, but Kuya insists that he can handle the remaining waves. Zero warns him if he continues to boast, his mana might run out. Kuya says that he will handle this job himself selflessly, because he finally feels that he can protect everyone. Zero during the purchase shows the hero the act and says that he has a disgusting nature because he is so selfless. Suddenly the group freezes in place. The path parts, a space opens. They finally find it, a colossal altar connected to the gods. But just as they are ready to celebrate reaching their goal, someone screams wildly for them to wait. From the shadows emerges the Prime Minister, looking like an absolute strongman from a final boss. He mocks them for their ignorance and calls Kuya to start the ritual. The entire squad is completely immobilized by what they see. Kuya simply throws a cold glance at them and admits, he worked for the villains from the very beginning. The girls can't even digest the betrayal. They only pray that it was just a sick joke. But Kuya just brushes them off and says, "Thanks for everything up to this point," while walking to the altar. Zero narrows his eyes and looks as if he is about to eliminate the traitor right where he stands. The old man with a monocle demands that Kuya lend him more magic to take care of the entire group. He brazenly admits that from the start he was a rat for the lizardman's quest. Amaris doesn't listen to his excuses and prepares to put an end to this circus once and for all. Suddenly, a colossal magic circle bursts forth, pulsating with a dark and terrifying aura. Lily immediately recognizes the forbidden ritual. It is a demonic summoning. This burly monster creature emerges from the portal looking like a real nightmare. Wasting no time, the beast unleashes a wave of hellfire. It can incinerate the entire room. Lily barely manages to deploy an ice shield so the party isn't wiped out. The clash of fire and ice gives birth to a chaotic storm of steam and pressure. The wolf eater chuckles mockingly, ordering everyone to burn to a crispy crust while his monster rages. Even with Zero's enormous magical reserve, Lily warns, the ice will not withstand such heat power. The partition begins to crack and melt under the merciless force of the demon's flame. Princess Grace suddenly steps forward, tired of feeling like a dead weight during every fight. She shows that she can also use fire magic, and she is the first person truly recognized in Person Zero. The monocled villain mocks her and says she is nothing more than a feudal princess. Zero ignores the dirty attacks and decides to flood her with pure raw magical power. Grace takes the energy like a true champion and prepares for a high-stakes move. She tightly grips her staff with a gaze full of absolute determination. Again breaking free from behind the safe ice wall, she strides straight into hell itself. The old man shouts for her to turn to ashes. Grace clenches her thoughts into a fist. She understands that she needs to take control over the spirits to tame this flame. Zero looks at his partner without any hesitation in this trust. In complete absolute flex, Gray stands completely unharmed while the fire bursts out in spirals around her. She not only survived the attack, she skillfully captured the demon's own fire. She tells the villain not to look down on her, because on her side is a majestic dark spirit. Panic, the old man begs Kuya to give him more power to save his plan, which is falling apart. Kuya just throws a cold look at him, and it becomes clear that he has completely run out of magic juice. He admits that it took him time to drain resources from him while he was stalling. Zero pulls out Zero's stolen magic stones, and by this proves that he is the truest loot goblin. The old man screams about betrayal, but Kuya he doesn't care. He says he only does what he wants, regardless of the consequences. Before the madman can finish reading his scream, Zero crushes him with a single punch to the face. All the other traitors have already been arrested and tied together at the back bound to each other. Amaris froze with a stone face and looked around, immediately realizing that the direct threat had passed. Grace sparkles with anticipation, waiting for Zero to praise her cool decision with the big brain. He finally tells her, "You did well," and she bursts with joy. Of course, she immediately speeds up and starts grumbling, saying that he should have proposed to her, not to her. The victory celebration is interrupted by a sudden, piercing cry of pain. Amaris rushes forward because Koya is suddenly struck by an unknown force. Koya flies head over heels, choking on cough and blood while the atmosphere thickens and presses. Zero understands. They have just encountered a monster, and this is a completely different level of power. Amara stands her ground, shielding the wounded Koya from the alien. The real boss, Gomis, finally comes into the light like an unbreakable wall of steel. Gaumlis, the knight commander of the kingdom, steps into the light with a self-satisfied expression. Zero immediately tries to stabilize the wounded Koya, using specialized medicine for his chibai spirits. Our guy has no idea who this big idiot is, but he recognizes trouble as soon as he sees it. Zero demands an explanation for why a high-ranking official would betray his own position. Gaumlis says he does it for the sake of peace in his own twisted manner. His brilliant plan is to completely sever the connection between humanity and the spirits. Zero cannot believe the audacity of this absolute giant standing before him. The logic is this: if people stop relying on magic, the spirits will finally stop fading. Gaumlis admits he is actually trash at magic, so he carved his way up with pure steel. He knows you can't reach the Prime Minister. He has several spirit contracts. His goal is a world ruled by raw power, without any spirit interference. Zero simply calls him a cursed gorilla and mocks his huge ego. Amaris loses self-control and immediately orders him to shut up. While she manages to dash forward, the commander orders her to check the ground around her feet. He covered the floor with black stones. They attract the attention of every monster in this zone. The whole room is like a time bomb counting down to the explosion. He knew, without strategy, he would not withstand the Great Spirit in a 1v2 format. If they use magic, they will break the stones and destroy the altar. He breaks one stone just to prove that he is not bluffing. Amaras orders everyone to retreat and keep a close watch on Kui. She decides to handle this buddy on her own with her own blade. She feels responsible for not stopping her mentor before things went this far. The clash begins without any delay. She dashes forward, flying into the attack. Their blades collide with such force that the whole room shakes. It is such a high-speed shootout that any pro gamer would sweat. And Gaumlis is really impressed by how much she has leveled up since their last meeting. Zero watches in awe as she, fighting with insane precision, dodges every stone. Her sisters understand. Right now she is fueled only by pure self-hatred and the bitterness of remorse. Two warriors clash blades in a hopeless test of sheer strength alone. Amaris demands to be told why he is behaving so incredibly foolishly. He insists that he is simply putting in order the mess that the royal family has ignored for years. He asked why her family is allowed to rule, but he is not. Amara yells at him to shut up and puts everything into her next strike. It seems she is really gaining the upper hand and demands his complete surrender. Gamos just smiles indulgently and tells her that she has really changed. Zero notices the trap and shouts for her not to lower her guard and to keep watch. Amaris realizes her mistake a moment too late. A super powerful explosion of energy, the sensor flew backward, and he was seized by complete shock. Gaumlis mocks her for softening and not finishing the job, although she had a chance. He approaches to erase her, forever delivering the final, decisive blow. But Zero rushes in without any steps and extinguishes the strike with his own body, taking the hit. Our guy is all sweaty from fear but does not allow her to suffer. He broke his bones again but still holds his position. Zero's expression becomes eerily cold as soon as he looks at the commander. Gaumlis thinks he has won. The group is trapped in a corner and is using their last strength. He doesn't just suggest, he has the audacity to declare that they should start working together. Zero just looks at him point blank with pure murderous intent in his eyes. Gaumlis does not back down, offers a deal that sounds like a complete trap. While the villain waits for an answer, our guy checks his team, making sure Amaku is stable after those cursed stones drained her mana. He does not play by luck. he orders the group to use the medicine chibai to immediately patch everyone up. Having handed over his pipe for safekeeping, Zero completely changes his mood. He is already tired of being polite and tells the whole group that he will now give this old man a legendary thrashing. Gumless just laughs, having no idea what this impudent fellow can actually do against an experienced commander. Zero is not scared at all. He boasts that in his old world he was a true absolute monster. He offers the old man, the good old godmother challenges him to an honest fistfight. Gumless takes the bait and thinks he has the advantage in the fight. But Zero knows that his magic is weaker than Amaku's magic, so he forces the fight at close range to protect the black stones. Even the Chibis shout their support to him as he enters the ring. The stakes are too high. If Gumless wins, the whole party must surrender. The commander crashes into the place like a truck, shouting that his life choices do not deserve any pity. But Zero does not fight with honor. He comes in with a nasty headbutt ram that completely knocks Gumless off track. Confidently lands another blow as if this speedrun is already in his pocket. Gamos understands Zero is not some random guy but a street veteran. Zero only smiles indulgently, admitting that he is not a knight and doesn't care whether the fight is fair. The two begin exchanging heavy blows, and the shockwaves are so strong that the girl breaks out in a sweat like hail. Gumless hits as if he truly has elephant strength, and Zero endures a colossal amount of beatings. Even when he is doubled over, Zero does not give up on his goal. Despite the blood, Zero still burns with a psychopath smile. Gamless thinks he is about to deliver a fatal blow and end the fight right here. But the Zero, with another brutal frontal strike, yells at the gorilla not to look down on him. Time passes. The blow is so harsh that Gamaz's head twitches in pain and jerks sharply backward. While Zero stands all battered, he shows that all this time he was hiding something important under his hoodie. Lily freezes in horror and thinks that our guy is already on the edge. It turns out Zero used a dirty trick. He hid a stone axe under his clothes to absorb all those heavy blows. Lily is simply stunned. He drags such a heavy thing just for tactical advantage. Gaumless is boiling with anger, but Zero just laughs and brushes it off, saying this is not his only surprise. He calls his pipe back, ready to put an end to this show. Zero reveals the real plan. He endured that beating only to pin Gaumless down and keep him in one place. While they were fighting, the Chibis focused on gathering everything into a single blackstone in the district. Gamo realizes he was used as a chibai stamp. Behind his back, just behind him, a huge pile of stones. Zero scores 0 points for his weapon, and he called Gaumless for the last time, calling him a thick-headed fool. When Gaumless shouts a protest, Zero reminds him that he is a Yankee, not a hero. Zero lets smash whacking Gaumless with a pipe without any delay. He attacks him and starts laying out all the reasons why the commander deserves such a thrashing. The rest of the party watches the slaughter and feels both excitement and complete disgust due to the lack of any dignity. Gaumlas eventually leave tied to the pole stands like erased from the frame, completely destroyed appearance. She seems to brush off and tells everyone, in a real fight only the result matters. When the threat is already neutralized, the group finally stands before the ancient altar. They have reached the end of this exhausting path. Even the chibai versions of the crew do not know what to do next. Then Zero decides to give the mechanism his spirit-charged pipe. He with a roar turns the weapon down and shouts, "Eat this as the last sacrifice." Suddenly the whole hall bursts into a dazzling flash of light. This colossal surge of energy marks the beginning of the end of their journey. Zero opens his eyes all exhausted after the fight, like crumpled. He gets up all dirty and bloody after that dazzling light in the sanctuary. The group finds themselves in a giant ancient library, as if in a hidden DLC location. The girls were drenched in sweat, realizing that this was the legendary place where God resides. Kuya sees from the notes. Zero seems to have recognized the plan. Zero admits this is the place where he was first resurrected. Suddenly, a whole pack of absolute giants emerges before them. One of the high-ranking creatures lashes out at them with reproach, saying, "Why did they strike the sanctuary instead of praying?" And the villain in the center of the group just laughs and waves it off, demanding to hear their final answer. Zero and Koya stand firm, ready to complete their main mission. Koya keeps it simple, says that his answer is the same as when they last spoke. Everyone turns their gaze to Zero, waiting for him to announce his decision. Just then, some skinny guy in glasses rolls up out of nowhere. The girls are completely confused and demand to know who this nerd is, but Zero casually drops a bomb. Actually, he has one. God only smiles indulgently. He notes that Zero gave him that nickname 4 Eyes without even asking permission. The mood becomes truly tense as God explains the final reward. They are allowed to use their power exactly once to radically change the world. They could choose to become rulers of the world or even erase all people if they consider this species to be pure filth. Zero requests confirmation that he has a basic sandbox for reality. God asks if the journey finally helped find the answer he was looking for. Zero begins a monologue and admits, from a world without magic, he knows that people can survive without help. After traveling this world, he realized, It is a masterpiece mostly thanks to Chibis. He says, without magic, people will simply refine technologies that will accelerate the destruction of nature. Chibis are special because they make contracts only with people they truly like. Everything relies on this mutual connection and warmth. Zero shows his big brain rotation. He wants to completely separate the spirit forest from the human world. When a spirit runs out of mana and turns into stone, it automatically teleports to the forest to recover. Thus, even broken stones can stay with friends while they heal. This is a system where people can still use magic without forcing spirits to sign contracts they do not want. Bog confirms the plan was not cut down and it can really be pulled off. Kai believes the idea is great and supports the plan. He laughs, noting that Zero's character never changes, he always puts spirits first. However, Bog reveals this plan has one huge downside. Without a guide, the spirits will not be able to return from the forest on their own. Alright, Zero turns back to Bog ready to accept the sacrifice. The girls understand what he has in mind and shout for him to stay while he prepares to leave them. Zero drops a bombshell, he is the one who must stay behind. Grace immediately starts sweating profusely and refuses to accept that her boyfriend is being removed from the party during a weakening. Pitometric explains, the great spirits have work and because of this they have no other options. Koya admits, even with his magic, he is not the one suitable for this task. He reveals that K0 has been carrying the team on his own mana reserves all this time. Our guy is actually much more exhausted than he shows. Even after blasting with all high-level spells, he still manages to keep a cheeky smile. This man is a real monster, building walls and digging tunnels without a single crack in spirit. Grace is broken. If he leaves, she will be stuck in a solo game forever. Lily tries to persuade him to stay and enjoy the world they just saved. But the Zero was set at the crossing to the other side. He knows it will be a lonely, exhausting routine. Looking at his bloodied belongings, it is clear at what cost this journey came. He does it to repay Chibai, who saved him at the beginning. He reaches out once more for the last time. He strokes Lily and Grace on the head one last time, apologizing for the abrupt departure. Girls cry so much that it could fill a mana potion. Zero turns to the boy with glasses and says that next time he should have a much better explanation ready. He leaves his Chibai squad under someone's care. Then he starts mocking Koya, calling him a weakling, and tells Amaris to look after him. Lily loses her composure, and Zero says that it is not like her to be so emotional. He thanks her for always keeping the group under supervision. Grace tries to pull aggro, insisting that she will not let him go. Zero just smiles and gives her credit for how much he has changed. He gives her a final thank you. Grace completely curls up under the weight of the emotion of this moment. She calls him unfair for leaving like that. He does not laugh through his teeth and thanks all the Chibis for always being there his ride or dies. He asks them to continue protecting the people of this world. Finally, he says to the Four Eyes to press the switch. A huge magical circle emerges beneath him. He is sucked into the portal, and he grumbles about zero lag during the journey. His last scream echoes as he disappears from the server. But then a year passes and we move into the future. Grace looks like a complete beast back on her path. After talking with the king, she decided to travel to truly get to know the world. She decided to do everything in her power, even if she feels weak. Meanwhile, Amaris is still squeezing power from Kui to the last drop. Now she is a knight captain and everyone sees, they are just publicly flirting. Lily has grown a little. These two girls stayed together on the road all this time. Finally, they get back to Spirit Forest, the place where it all began. Suddenly, they were surrounded by a pack of dirty mob goblins. They have already run out of magic, and they can't even cast a basic shield. Asvit, Grace, and Lily are stuck between fleeing and fighting in this losing battle. They can't win. Suddenly, a huge explosion of light wiped out the entire group of goblins from the face of the earth. Grace is stunned by the incredible power of the attack. Lily wonders who could have so much firepower. A hand reaches out through the smoke. It's our guy Zero, pretending he never disappeared. The girls look as if they just saw a ghost. Zero admits that maybe he overdid the speedrun on the way back. It turns out he brought so many spirits to the other side that he broke the world's magical flow again. Now he will have to travel the world to fix the mess he made. He looks at the girls and tells them it's time to perform. They are shocked he wants them to go with him. He reminded them of the promise they made a year ago. Grace and Lily have already agreed to everything, ready to follow him forever. They promise to be by his side, without any smirks of arrogance, ready to rush into battle again with his team. The journey continues, the whole team is together again.